Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Survivor Stockwatch podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and today we will be talking about this week's episode of Survivor. I don't know exactly what number episode it was, probably episode 12 or 11? No, I think it was 12. And with me to talk about it, very special guest, I've got Peridium. How you doing, Peridium?
Taran, I'm doing really good. I am over the moon with this episode of Survivor. Like, you couldn't ask for a better penultimate, episode to conclude. We got the week to lead up to the finale, and I am like brimming with joy at what we just watched. I'm happy to be here to break it down. Thank you for inviting me, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Yes. This is, of course, the podcast where we will eventually rate all of the players from 1 to 10 based on how well we think they're doing in the game. It has been kind of difficult, especially this season, to figure out exactly what's been happening and exactly what's going on. But we do our best. And this episode, this was a good one. This was good stuff. And I will say I still didn't love some of the stuff that was like explaining what happened last time and some of like the extras around what we were seeing. But at the end of the day, there were some really fun moments and really excellent sort of like everything that you would want from Survivor moments for me, where it's like strategically we're talking about a plan that's like 3 layers deep, a plan on top of a plan on top of a plan. Dramatically, it is it's like oh my god, he's really doing it. Big betrayal, big emotional moments. This is great.
Yeah, I will agree with you. There are some things throughout this season going into this episode, knowing I would be a long form conversation about Survivor 43. Most of my commentary is short form, and I don't often get to share I don't really choose to share my opinions much. So going into this episode 12, I was a little bit hot and cold with this season. I have pros and cons, and I feel like they're fairly balanced, as all things should be. But this episode for me tilted me in the direction of like, okay, I'm here, and it got me at like the right time, right at the very end, right, right at the pointy end. So yeah, I'm excited to sit down and talk with you about this. Really, if it's turning into what I think is going to be a coronation for at least possibly for one player. I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I certainly have been wrong before, but it's what it feels like right now. So we'll see.
Yeah, this episode, because like I've been talking to people and they will have you enjoyed the season so far, and sort of my answer has been like, it's been fine. It hasn't been the best. I feel like the cast is really fun, but I feel like the editing has let us down a little bit. And I haven't enjoyed it as much as I feel like I could be enjoying it. This episode, while it was happening, started to make me feel like, do I need to rethink this season? Like, is this a better season than I'm giving it credit for? I still feel like I wish they portrayed it better. And I think we can talk about that. But I do think that like, if the finale can carry this momentum, then it can end really strong. And I don't know if that means we head into a coronation, or if that means that like there's one more big surprise in store for us. But if it can carry this to the finale, then I'm gonna feel a lot better about the season as a whole, I think.
Yeah, I could totally agree. I'm not a huge fan of coronation edits and storylines on Survivor. I tend to find them a little bit straightforward and predictable. This for me was not as predictable, and I feel like the story of Survivor 43 has been largely framed around Jesse. First time we're mentioning him in the podcast, took about 5-10 minutes, but this felt like Survivor 43 has largely been Jesse's story in many ways, and he's somewhat been in the background. And on one hand, I'm looking at it like, okay, are we seeing a modern era, a masterclass of Survivor, and they're just sort of kind of rolling out the red carpet? But I think because it's Jesse, his personality, he's a little bit more mellow. He's not he's not really the flashy character that you get. He's not the Tony of the Survivor world, you know. He's not going to be all over the top. He's very subtle in every scene he's in, even in his confessionals. On the flip side, though, I've been down this road before. I did think Rick Devens was going to win Edge of Extinction, and Rick Devens was not a Jesse, but he did have a presence that felt like they were kind of doing the same thing. They're rolling out the red carpet. And so I'm sort of looking at Jesse now like, all right, if we're going to get this coronation, I'm on board. They've really done a good job. I think looking back, and I have looked back at Survivor 43 a lot, they have really laid it out for Jesse, but it's very possible that this is actually going to end with, oh, he was so close. He was this close. Look at how much he did. Look at, and then he just, maybe they're setting him up for an all-star appearance. I don't know, but I don't know. I definitely have a lot of thoughts on that storyline, and we can talk about this because at this point there's really nothing left to do except speculate on how it's going to end. But yeah, I feel like it's one or the other. I think it's either Jesse's the mastermind or he is the fallen angel at probably at fire making because he's got an idol.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it's been such a strange road for me with Jesse where I feel like from the beginning I felt like this guy's good. I remember all the way back to him making like the like island marriage, whatever it was with Dwight back on the original tribe. I was like, this guy's very good socially. And then I also remember when he went to like Advantage Island / Advantage Rock / whatever you want to call it. And I remember watching it on Twitch and having a moment where they were interacting and he cracked like a joke at one point that made me instantly be like, man, this guy, like he just instantly put the other two at ease and took control of that situation. And I was very impressed by him. But strategically, like every step of the way, I've been like, okay, you pulled that off, but what does that mean for you moving forward? I'm not sure. And I feel like every step of the way, I've had some doubts about the direction that he's going. And in the last 3 episodes, I've been like, okay, you pulled that off. Kudos, man. But now they know. Now they're coming for you. You're exposed. And then the next episode comes and not a single person says Jesse's name. And I'm like, wow. And then he pulls something else off. And I'm like, okay, but now they know. Now they're coming for you and you're exposed. And the next episode comes and they still haven't said his name. And now it's this episode and he pulls off another massive play. And right now I can't help but think, now they know. But it's like, do I keep beating my head up against that wall or should I go back? Should I revert? Like everybody lives until eventually they die. So like, when is it going to come for him? I don't know.
I mean, look no further than last season. Look, I would say Marianne's magnum opus was the final 6 move. Now, Marianne didn't have, I would say, as much of a punchy pulling off moves throughout the post-merge as maybe Jesse did. But you would think at that point, and Jesse has an idol at Final 5 now, and nobody knows about it. So it's, for me, it like, I was in the same position where you were, where Jesse was not always my front runner after every episode, even though I was very impressed and I liked what I saw. I was also left with this, okay, but what are we missing? Where's it it's gonna eventually crash. Like the other shoe is gonna drop. Like I'm waiting for it. I've seen this before. I felt like this is like Omer, like last year, or even a little bit of Shan, where she controlled like 7 episodes. And then this crack started to form. So I'm like, okay, that was big. I can see a crack. I can see, oh, Gabler's got a plan. Oh, Gabler's got a plan now. Where's this coming at? Okay, or Noelle. Noelle's suspicious of him now. Dwight's gone. Noelle's got to do something. Like something's going to happen. And a part of me is like a little frustrated that we aren't seeing his name brought up. I tweeted this last week after Sammy's boot. I was like, Cody and Jesse are right there. Like they're right there. What are you guys doing? And I don't know exactly what they're doing. There are times in the edit where I'm not 100% certain what exactly is happening. But Jesse, I don't know if he's ever once been targeted, even to this moment right now through episode 12, leading into the finale. I don't think anyone has ever targeted Jesse. I could be wrong. And that to me is a wild, like everyone else's name has come up as a potential person to get voted for. I'm not sure if has Gabler been voted for. I feel like Gabler maybe didn't get votes. or did he get votes? Either way, he,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't think Gabler's received any votes either, which is kind of shocking.
Well, he's hiding in plain sight.
I mean, honestly, maybe that's why they're showing us that, because he's literally hiding in plain sight and not a single person's voting. But maybe there's a reason why nobody. But then on the flip side, maybe there's a reason why nobody's voting for Jesse and talking about Jesse being a target. Maybe he is so under the radar that it's actually like not gonna pan out well for him because he's not. But then you look at the jury after this and you're like, this is the Marianne moment. This is the moment where the jury's like, Tony, like, bing, like their eyes open and they're all like, boom. I'm like, that's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the jury votes. And Cody seems to be totally like gamesmanship. GG, you got me, Jesse. Like, he's cool with it. He's a little bitter, but at the same time, I think he's willing to accept that he got beat and own that and be okay with it, based on what we saw. So like, I'm like, okay, is Jesse actually going to do this? Like, is this what we're getting? It's pretty. I'm astounded, and I started asking myself, like, is this like a top 10 winning game? If I look at like the control and the position he's been in since the very first time he went to tribal council, the way they've certainly presented it, I'm like, maybe we'll have to see how it ends. But if he wins, yeah, there's a decent chance.
I would say if he doesn't have to make fire, then
if he gets taken.
if he gets taken, then let's say like this best case scenario moving forward is he doesn't even have to play idle next time. He keeps that in his pocket for final tribal and then gets taken at final four. If those two things happen, then yeah, I'm gonna put him. We have to start talking about all timer.
For a single game.
Yeah. If he has to play the idol, if he has to win immunity or win fire, it's still, I think, a great game. But I think the discussion is like there's more to talk about in terms of like where he should be placed, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I will say like a lot of the best winners oftentimes had to win like a 1 or 2 immunities at the finals, final 5, final 4, or even final 3. So like he'll be up there. It'll be interesting to see, what this finale brings us with his, he's guaranteed there's no idle nullifier. This isn't going to be a Jan. I don't think there's an idle nullifier coming into play. So he's got final 4 most likely, regardless. If he can get like Marianne did to get another player to like find a way to save him and he's not even out there. In that case, I don't think there's another idol. So although they might, they started bringing people to a new island and then they introduce, I guess that was an Island of the Idols, maybe not in the modern era. They tend to do this. They bring them in at the beginning of the finale, and I think they have like an advantage for the final 5 challenge.
There's probably some sort of advantage for the final immunity that they have to find on the new island or the new camp.
I think he'll probably end up playing as idol, even if he doesn't win immunity, just better. Like, it'd be embarrassing if he didn't and he get voted out. But yeah, anyway. We're not even rating the Stockwatch players yet, the numbers, but it's like, I was looking at these numbers here and I'm like, this is kind of indicative of what I rewatched this episode in the time between the episode and now. And I'm like, there's like one guy at the top and then there's a lot left. I'm like, all right, I'm going to parse through. That's the interesting is like, how do I parse through the rest of the players to find what I truly think, especially in the event that Jesse isn't going to win the season, if that's the outcome. Like, yeah. What else do we get from this? Because, man, this was a layer after a layer. This was a triple layer strategy that worked to perfection, and Jesse completely laid it out. So
it's interesting stuff. It's a good episode to talk about for sure. Jeff had some treats for us.
Muffins. Oh yeah.
You like muffins? Do you like muffins, Taran?
Big muffin fan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm eating tonight after this podcast?
What? Muffins?
2 mini muffins.
2 mini muffins.
2 mini muffins.
Are
Whole
they
2 of them.
Are they blueberry?
They are blueberry. Yeah.
There you go. That's a good one.
I think I'm probably gonna chop them in half. Throw like a tiny little bit of butter.
Oh.
Pop them on the grill.
Oh wow. Okay. I've never done that. Is that good?
Oh, that's the way to go. I haven't done it with a mini muffin before, so I don't know how that's gonna play. But yeah. That's it doesn't have to be a grill. You can put it on the stove, but that's the way to go.
Wow. All right. I haven't had a
Yeah,
muffin in a while, but dang, there you go.
it's good stuff. Muffins are great. Thanks, Jeff.
Muffins. Hell yeah.
I will say though, my reaction to muffins was like, I feel like if I hadn't eaten in 20 days and I won a reward that gave me
Muffins. Hell yeah.
and caffeine, I feel like my body would shut down if I just had if I had 3,000 calories of carbs and caffeine, I feel like my body would explode.
I mean, you could start doing Cody's little dance, maybe.
I
You
guess
know,
so.
maybe you get that much of an energy rush, a sugar rush. Start doing a little shuffle, Survivor shuffle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably. I don't know what it's like. I haven't started myself to that degree, but I would probably be in the same case. Although I have heard like getting sugar is oftentimes better than most other nutrients you can get from the Survivor Awards. I've heard sugar is actually
Probably, yeah.
people think it's not good, but it's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that. I think it's mostly like just the pure carbs that I feel like would just like the all of the just eating muffins and pastries and then caffeine too. Like
Coffee.
like I mean, who
I,
knows?
I will say like one of my biggest fears, I have like two biggest fears if I ever played Survivor. One of them is I would get swap screwed, although that clearly wouldn't be happening in the last 3 seasons. The second one would be I get medevacs like Joe and Korong or Bruce. That is a fear. That's a legitimate fear of mine. Like I am worried that it will lead to that somehow. Like my digestive tract, even though I'm not eating, if I get a reward, it will result in because like growing up, I had issues like occasionally with digesting food. So I know what that's like, and it sucks. So I'm just like, man, I can't imagine putting myself through that much shock, eating all those muffins, eating like drinking all that. Although maybe the coffee would create the opposite effect and have me go. But I don't know. Anyway, that's a thought of mine. Whenever I see these rewards, I think about that. It's like a little fear in the back. I'm like, what if I get medically evacuated? This is my story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always like I'd like to think that I'd have self-control in this situation. Be like, look, I'm not gonna overeat. I'm not gonna put myself in a position where I put my body in danger. And then I remember that I am a food idiot. And that every single time I eat pizza, I burn my mouth. Like it's I cannot stop myself. Every time I like have any kind of food that is too hot, I will eat it and think this time it's going to be okay. And then afterward, I'm like, what was I thinking? Now I have a burned mouth. So I would definitely just shove all of the muffins down my throat.
I guess just be careful not to crisp or cook the muffins tonight a little too long. And
Yeah.
they are mini, so make sure you don't overestimate it or underestimate it.
There we go. So we did get a little bit of information about what happened last week with Carla. It did not feel satisfying to me, though. I still don't understand it completely. This
I
was
don't
what
either.
we discussed this last week. That apparently it is in fact true that Carla decided to switch her vote because of Sammy and the shot in the dark situation. What I don't understand is what she thought everybody else was doing. Because they played it off like, oh, she just rogue switched her vote. But then wasn't she shocked when it was unanimous against Sammy when she thought that the votes were going to be there for Cassidy? Like, was there actually a conversation at Tribal where they decided to switch their votes that we didn't see? Because she comes back to camp and she's not like, whoa, what the hell? Why did everyone else switch their votes? I thought I was the only one. And she still seems to trust Jesse, and she still seems to be completely on board with everything that's happening. So I just don't understand. I feel like there's still a disconnect there for me.
I'm in the same page. Did Shannon? I know you talked to her last week. Did she not figure out like what possibly? I know you guys didn't see the beginning of this episode, but clearly it didn't really do anything anyway. I was pretty confused too. I didn't really understand. I was like, oh, why would you guys went all in on the guy who's playing his shot in the dark? That's an interesting strategy. But then it's like, oh, but no, that wasn't the plan. Okay, but then there's no talking about it, so I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, this has been a recurring frustration of mine with Survivor 43, and it's happened multiple episodes where I've tried to break it down to make sense of it, to gauge like who's where. Sometimes it's for a video of mine, and I'm sort of left with like a lot of question marks of like, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that, or maybe it's something completely out of the blue, and we'll find out postseason. It was just like Carla didn't really think too much about it. I don't know. Maybe it was just she just flipped her vote and she didn't really think twice because she was focused on something else. And I don't know. We'll find out if she does an interview. But I don't. Yeah, I don't fully know, and I don't know if the editors or if the show cares that much to talk about it. Clearly, it's not important enough. Apparently.
Yeah. So yeah, hard to know exactly what's happening there. Carla is going to immediately be ratted out by Owen first, which was interesting to me because Owen really takes the helm of the plan that it seemed like Jesse was the who like came up with it. And for a second, I was like, okay, is Owen going to try and essentially like take over this play and be sort of the front person for it? Unfortunately, it seems like it's, ultimately Jesse's going to have to come in and, land the plane. And it's going to come back onto Jesse's resume, it seems. And we can talk about Owen again more. I talked a lot about him last week and how I felt like bit of a missed opportunity to not flip it around on Jesse. And I was hoping that he would maybe think about doing that this week. And then he opens the episode doing Jesse's plan for him. So I'm not sure about that. But we have this whole situation to resolve where Cassidy's going to confront Carla, and Carla is going to deny it after Owen tells Cassidy. What did you think of Owen sort of like taking the forefront of this?
Yeah, I've also similarly wished he would somewhat break out of his own. He's sort of allowing himself to miss the kick of the football and then not recovering in the aftermath. And it's sort of been a repeated storyline for him. Also, if he's watching Hi Owen, go Vikings. Ultimately, I do feel like he's one of the safer players, and I don't know if that's a good thing for him going forward, but I do wish that he would take a little bit more ownership in some of what's happening and try to, even if he's not leading the vote, co-opt it and take control. It doesn't hurt, I don't think. Maybe people will find out that you're, I don't know, lying about how your involvement or how much you're steering the ship, but maybe they won't. And maybe when you get those one-on-one opportunities, he seems very malleable socially. He's able to talk to a lot of people. He sort of seems to be constantly in the mix with a lot of people's strategy, which I love. I'm worried he's constantly following everyone. And this was another episode of him following a plan instead of being at the forefront and taking any sort of control. So yeah, that's how I feel about Owen right now.
Yeah, I will say, and especially when it comes around to rating Owen, that even though he did not make the move I was hoping he would for his game, I do think that he catches a bit of a break here with Jesse deciding to turn on Cody, because it really opens the door for him. And that's the benefit of safe play, is that it keeps you safe until, more openings come up. And I still don't like this opening as much as I liked the other opening, but I don't think he's completely drawing dead yet, especially with, essentially Gabler playing the same game. And who knows where Cassidy and Carla stand at this point with the jury. So, I think there's still a path there, but I do think that, like, given what we're hearing from him in confessionals, where he's like, I want to take control of my own destiny in this game, I do feel like he's missing opportunities here. Then we see Cassidy again confront Carla. Carla does the play of, you're questioning me? What? I can't believe that. I just feel like we've been through so much. That it hurts that you'd even think that I could do that to you. And she says she's crying, but I didn't actually see any crying. I don't know if you went full cry there, Carla. But she goes the kind of like the indignant route, which I feel like is not the best strategy in a game of Big Brother or Survivor. I feel like almost always the person that goes that route is guilty of the thing that they're indignant about.
Yeah, usually. And I don't think Cassidy, to her credit, believed Carla. I don't think it changed a ton, other than it just furthered a divide between them going forward.
Yeah, well, the worst of it was like, and if you don't believe me, ask Jesse.
Yeah, that's not the best either. Letting Jesse tell you what's going down. We just saw Jesse right before Tribal basically be like, yes, like championing the different stories, just telling him both different stories, and they seem to believe him more than they believe each other. So that's always a bad look. I do like that Cassidy doesn't fully believe Carla and understands like, yeah, this isn't making sense, but it's unfortunately falling in the lap of like the little finger or the Varys of the tribe, which is unfortunate. He's the middle of it. He's in the middle, furthering this rift, and it's causing them to have to go for each other over probably the front runner.
You might call him the middle finger,
The middle finger. That's a good one.
as Cody had some for him at the end there.
Yep, two middle fingers, two birds. Two birds in the hand is worth anyway. I don't know.
Well, so I mean, essentially, what happened here is that Carla got Ellied. This is exactly what happened to Ellie in the first portion of the season in the pre-merge. That Ellie felt like she was swindling Gabler, and she played up all of these, the questioning of like, oh, what do you think about your idol? And had this whole plan to like, get one over on Gabler. The problem is that if other people know that you're lying to another person, you're giving them the opportunity to rat you out.
Yep.
And so when Carla goes to Jesse and she's like, I turned on the waterworks, like, you got to go back me up. It's like, you are handing him the keys to your castle. And he can do whatever he wants in there with them. And if he decides to screw you over, you are dead to rights with Cassidy forever because you just got caught in a massive lie. And so, if I'm Carla, like, I feel like the best play there, and I get it. I think at the end of the day, it's a bad play mostly because she trusted the wrong person. She got drawn in by Jesse clearly, and if you can trust Jesse, maybe that play works. But I feel like the play there is to just be honest. When Cassidy comes to you, clearly somebody's ratted you out, and it's at best going to be your word against theirs. So for me, it's just like, you know what? You're totally right. I did think about, but did not ultimately do. I did think about putting your name down. I had conversations about it, but only because it was brought to me by other people. And if they're now ratting me out and denying their involvement, then that means that this is a ploy to get us to fight each other. That would be my play because, I mean, ultimately that was the truth. And if it's not the truth, it's pretty believable because that's what people do in Survivor. And at least you're being honest. It's never going to be the same. I feel like there's always going to be some amount of like, okay, so you did betray me. But at least you're being honest from that point forward. Whereas if you continue to lie and then continue to get caught lying, then it's over. Like that path is dead to you.
Yeah, you're giving a lot of, like you said, you're giving the keys to the autobahn, $2 million, essentially. You're giving the keys to Jesse, who then, when he meets with Cassidy, because she is going to talk to him at some point, the first thing he says is like, everything we told you about Carla is true. Like, everything you've heard is true. She was gunning for you. And that's exactly what Cassidy wants to hear. So she immediately trusts Jesse way more than she's going to trust Carla after that.
And what incentive does Jesse have to back her up there? Like, I think you have to think about it in those terms too. Like, if you're Carla and you're like, hey, I trust this person, they're my ally, they'll back me up here. What is the benefit to his game to back you up there? When instead he can get kudos with Cassidy for himself, put a rift between the two of you, and put himself in a better position as long as he doesn't get caught. Like, there's not a lot of reason for him to do it.
Yep. And it's also created, not only has it furthered the rift, it's given a lot of, it's put more eggs in Jesse's basket. He now has his Gabler, Owen, and even Cassidy on his side going into the final five, where he said, look, we'll get Cody out, flush both idols. Carla's our next biggest threat. Carla's going next. This cemented, like, it feels like from what we've seen, Cassidy is now way more on Jesse's side, voted with him tonight to get Cody out. completely left Carla in the dark, who is now defenseless and also physically and seems to be in pain, which is not great. So she's gonna have trouble winning immunity from the bottom. And it does sort of go back to like, how did this even start? Like, how did we get here with these two, with Cassidy and Carla? And it was like, because Sammy, I think, wanted to create a rift to just try and create an opening, and then Jesse decided to keep it. And he's like, this is great. This is exactly what we want. And then he's like, I'm just gonna keep going with this now, this narrative. It's been a lot of like, yeah, it's sort of fumbling the football at the end, unfortunately. And I keep going back to like, Jesse's right there. I'm so credit to where credit's due. Like, he's not being seen at all, noticed at all. And I think that's now going to be to his betterment, because he's in a position where he can't be, it doesn't matter if they see him anymore, like unless it's the fire making. The division between Cassidy and Carla, who are most likely the two biggest threats in this final five. And with Cody out of the way, like, Jesse's making a beeline for it, and he's fueling this situation that we saw at the beginning of this episode, turning the two women against each other. Boy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have a lot of things to say about the move to take out Cody. But to like finish out this storyline that started last week with this move to take out Sammy, I talked last week about how I had some reservations about that move because it could leave him exposed. Given how it turned out, flawless. This was an amazing move to recognize that he didn't need to take out Cassidy because a rift between Carla and Cassidy already existed, and he could play up that rift, take out a player like Sammy, who's good at making fire and was like a solid like mercenary player that could be picked up as a free agent anywhere else. Yeah, I mean, just what a play to orchestrate that, get away with it, and in the process pick up Cassidy. Carla still trusts you fully. You now have Cassidy and Carla at each other, both trusting you. You still have Cody. You still have Owen, who now feels included in your plans and is willing to help you out to orchestrate these plans. And Gabler is still, on board to the extent that Gabler is on board. I mean, masterful play. Should have gotten a 10 last week, in my opinion, but didn't know how it played out until now. So, and maybe that's what it's going to be to this week too. I don't know. We'll see.
Wait, would you guys give him? You give him a 9 last week?
I gave him a 9, yeah, because I just felt like there was no way. I felt like he was too exposed. Or at least I felt like there was the option there. But again, given that he pulled it off, I mean, just excellent stuff from Jesse.
How do you feel about Owen coming back from this tribal and wanting to target Carla over anyone else? I know we're sort of switching for a second. I was just that was at the beginning of the episode when he comes back, and I thought, okay, we saw them take out Sammy. I do wonder, like, who is the big target? I would assume it's got to be like Jesse or Cody, but they know one of them as the idol, and then to hear Owen is constantly wanting to target Carla. I think Gabler wanted to split the votes between Cassidy and Carla. It was only thrown off once Cassidy wins immunity. So do you feel good about Owen at all wanting to target Carla of the remaining 6 here?
I didn't love it. Like, I hear what he's saying about Carla being a big threat. I think that's true. I think Carla is and was a big threat to win the game. The issue is that, like, Jesse and Cody are right there. And unlike Jesse last episode, who recognized Carla and Cassidy's split means that they both have their power and influence is dramatically reduced. Owen seems to feel like, okay, no, but we still have to get Carla out, and doesn't seem to recognize the threat that Jesse poses. Now, I think when it comes to Jesse and Cody, there was a part in the episode later that clued me into something that I assume exists, which is I think it was Owen and Cassidy talking about how Jesse has Cody's idol. And I think it was Owen saying, yeah, somehow Jesse got Cody to give him his idol. And she's like, how? I don't know. Like, I don't think they realize, and it's weird to, I think, me as a viewer who's seen Cody and Jesse lockstep for so long, but I don't think they've realized on the island that they're that close.
No.
They seem to have been able to hide how close they are, and I think that's a big part of why they are not being targeted. Why Jesse is not being targeted in general is because Cody's right there with an idol. He probably seems like the big threat, but Jesse is not attached to Cody. So if you were going to target them, you'd target Cody. But why bother targeting Cody yet when he doesn't really have anybody and he's got that idol? When you can deal with, Carla, who I think is probably more threatening in a Final Three situation than Cody is, and also had Cassidy for a little while. I can start to see maybe where it's all coming from. But of course, that just, I think, is credit to Cody and Jesse for being able to hide their relationship and the influence that they've had over the game, if that is the case.
Right. Also, Carla had won 2 immunities. Jesse hasn't won a single
Yeah.
thing. I think that poses a big threat going into the end when there's only so many people eligible to be voted for, especially with all these idols. They know there's like at least one idol out there, so that also helps. Yeah, I could see it. I agree with you. They're like Jesse's working his magic somehow. We don't know exactly what's going down, but he's got the idol. He's got Cody's idol, and they're like, oh damn, all right, he's working his magic. Yeah, there's a little bit of that. That's one thing I wish Survivor 43 did more was like I don't always understand what everyone thinks about each other. Where I do feel like a lot of times in other seasons, especially the older seasons, I have a better grasp of where people tend to stand. This season, because it's so strategy based, but the strategy is built around relationships. It's like I get the numbers, but I don't understand like why these are the numbers a little bit.
Exactly.
And so it's hard to make sense of like where it's going to go because it's so relationship based. That's just the nature of these shows.
Yeah, and for me, for a while, I was like, okay, I'm assuming that they're obscuring things from us because if they told us the truth, it would be obvious that there was kind of like something big happening that was straightforward, and it would make the show boring because it would be obvious what was coming. Right? Like they've done that before where they've hidden pagongings in obscure edits so that it didn't seem like it was a pagonging. Right? And it's like this argument of like, well, you're mad that you can't understand everything that's happening, but at least it's not obvious and straightforward. But given the trajectory of this merge to this point, there clearly hasn't been like one big group just running things. Maybe you could say Jesse has been running things, but not in a very like straightforward way where like it's been obviously Jesse the whole time. So I feel like, and I could still be wrong, and even if that were the case, I'd still disagree with it. I'd still rather know than not know. But it seems like that's not even much of an issue because if they had just told us, it still would have been pretty chaotic and a pretty wild ride to get here because it's really all over the place in terms of these vote outs. Like people are betraying their allies left and right, and structures that you thought were in place get broken up and new ones pop up. So like, I don't know. I feel like we could have known more and it still would have been pretty unpredictable. If anything, it might have been more unpredictable.
Yeah. I feel like they really love to lean on like they give us the intro scene and instead of the previously on Survivor, they sort of have like a 1.5 minute segment of it's like, okay, here's what we just saw. And like, here's one or two of the main players from the last scene from last week who basically is giving us like the long and short of why it went that way. And I'm like, but it's left a lot of the endings of the episodes in a bit of a haze of like, what? Why? Like, why did Janine go when we had this epic scene of like the numbers coming together and Sammy and this resistance and then, no Janine. And then it's like, oh, okay, there was just a bunch of numbers and they decided not to do it. And I guess it would have made it less interesting if we knew that it wasn't going to go through. We had an idea. Same thing happened, I think, with Dwight going. It was a little bit confusing. Sammy again last week. There's been a consistency with that, which I'm not. It's one of my minor flaws with this season, or maybe major flaws. But anyway, not for this episode though. This episode I completely got. I got the move. I got why it landed where it did. I don't know for sure if it's a great move for a lot of for a handful of the people who took part in it. That's going to be the biggest thing to consider when we look at the numbers here and rating the Stockwatch players. Is like, Okay, where does this leave them with only 5 players left in the game? 1 round of no fire making, possibly an idol or two out there, who knows for sure, and win equity. Like this is where the long term chance to win is like one of the biggest things because there's only so many combinations left. So what is that going to look like?
Yeah, who's the threat?
I'm a threat. I know I'm a freaking threat.
Yeah.
Carla's a threat. Yes. So we get to the reward challenge. The muffins happen.
Hell yeah.
We get a funny moment where Carla's gonna again put on the waterworks with no water. And because people say that a lot. Like in Big Brother, people are always like, they're fake crying. They're not actually. There's no tears there. And I'm like, I mean, people can kind of cry without tears. Like that exists. But it just struck me as weird that Carla kept saying, I cried I went to the crying, and I was like, it doesn't even seem like you're crying with no tears. It just seems like you're
Just making us sad.
it just seems like you're making a sad face. Yeah.
Like
people think I have an idol, and that's that. Oh man, it sucks that people think I have an idol.
That sucks.
Yeah, it sucks.
that sucks for you, Carla. Dude, that's not radical, man. I'm feel bad for you. Yeah, she sort of did like a sad emoji face, but there wasn't any tears coming out. Maybe she's dehydrated. I don't know.
To be fair, I mean, Cody bought it.
That sucks.
Owen bought it too.
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder if one of them's gonna be like, she walks away and they're like, they don't believe that. And oh no, they bought it. They bought it wholesale. They're like, yeah, we don't think she has an idol until they get back to camp, and then they find out that oh, she was lying to me this whole time. I always knew it.
Yeah. And this is a weird thing for me too, where at the time I was like, if I'm Carla, I kind of want people to think I have an idol because it will make them at least have to split their votes if they vote for me, and at best not bother voting for me because it's too risky. And if I'm Cassidy, I kind of don't want people to think Carla has an idol because if she does, then they have to split their votes. And who are they going to split their votes on? Maybe her.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, Cass, I don't think this is the right thing for you.
It did seem like if the perception is that Carla and Cassidy are the closest, or Cassidy's the closest player to Carla, you would assume that if they're going to try and flush Carla's idol that most of them seem to know about, or at least Cassidy's making it known at that point. Cassidy knows they know because she's straight up telling them. They're gonna put the votes on you, Cass. It might not be great if that's the actual plan A and not plan C that they went with. If they decided, we're gonna split the votes, although Cassidy did win immunity, which I was happy to see, but still, I was a little bit like, wait, they're gonna want to split the vote, and then they did. That was the very next scene. I was like, all right, here's the plan. Like we're putting 2 votes on Cassidy, 2 votes on Carla. She's got an idol. It's the final 6. It's just the move. It's the numbers are there.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was like they came away from Carla convincing them that she didn't have an idol with the notion of like, okay, I think she doesn't actually have an idol. Perfect. Let's vote for her. And then they come away from Cassidy saying, oh, Carla does have an idol with like, oh, I guess she does have an idol. I guess we have to vote for her and Cassidy.
Right. Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
whoops. Yeah, it's a bit of a whoopsie. I mean, maybe Cassidy trusted her relationships better than that. I don't know, but it does seem like we've seen Cassidy and Carla are the closest of the two of them. Like nobody's closer to Cassidy than Carla, vice versa. And I do think that I get that relationship. It makes sense. So I didn't fully understand. I do think that's, again, going back, it lends itself to the plan that Jesse is fueling to split the 2 women. And it just is another beat in that storyline that's going to keep going. We're going to see where this goes. It's possible they end up both in the final 3. That would be, I would be here for that. That would be really exciting. I have a feeling it won't, but still, this is just another chapter in the Cassidy Carla rivalry that somehow started out of thin air, and unfortunately is not in either's best interest, I don't think. Yeah.
well, don't worry, because Gabler's still here.
The best assassin doesn't show up at the castle with an axe saying, I'm here to kill the king. He or she slips into the kitchen, puts a vial of poison in the king's bowl, and leaves.
Yeah, that's
Alligator kind of came up to the surface.
Gabler,
I'm hiding in plain sight.
I was about to say, yeah, he's an interesting one. It's like through all of this, he's like the biggest character, but he's the one that we've had the least to talk about thus far through this final 6 episode. How do you feel about Gabler?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is another example that like clearly Gabler feels comfortable pitching to Jesse that they should take out Cody. Which is again like, and Gabler is in a final 3 with the 2 of them. So like, and they both approached him like, can you be our third? So clearly they've been able to convince everyone, including the guy they made a final 3 with, that they're not that close. But I think again, the thing with Gabler is that he's saying all of this in his confessionals, but like, what influence is he actually having here? Like he says he's an assassin, but like, who has he poisoned? Does he feel like he is responsible for this Cody move? Does he feel like he was able to get into Jesse's ear about it? Maybe he was, because again, like, I don't know that this was necessarily the right play from Jesse to take out. I don't know if he was correct that Cody would beat him in a final tribal. But maybe it was Gabler that kind of like poisoned his mind about it, right? I don't think we're like getting that explicitly in the footage. I think we're hearing Gabler kind of like talk in these general like metaphors. But I don't think it's impossible. The problem is that at the end of the day, Gabler is going to have to sell his game to the jury. And I can't help but think it's going to be a hard sell, especially if he's in the end with anybody who has better social relationships, like Carla or Jesse, or even Cassidy, and even somebody like Owen. I think has more like sort of like earnest passion about the game, whereas Gabler can kind of come off a little goofy.
Alligator kind of came up to the surface.
Like if he's talking about alligators and assassins, like I don't know if that's going to play well enough in the short amount of time he has. But I mean, it's interesting to watch because I feel like this is the Philip, right? Like this is the guy who everyone wants to be playing up the character, when in reality he's actually a bit more calculating. And this is, I think, kind of what he's going for. But again, the problem for me is like, I don't know if he knows exactly that that's what he's going for, or if that is like, because I don't know. I don't see him being super goofy with the rest of the players. It's mostly in confessionals. So like, it's just hard to get a good grasp on exactly who Gabler is and exactly who he is to the other players.
Yeah, we got a lot of that in the pre-merge, I feel like, when it was the original Baka tribe, and it wasn't a pretty picture for his winning chances. But of course, there's a lot of game left to be played at that point. But I also believe that oftentimes the pre-merge doesn't forget, even though we might forget about it. And I do think that's quite indicative of the ultimate outcome that we're going to see with Gabler. I haven't seen anyone compare him to Philip until you just said that, but that's exactly how I felt for weeks. And I thought a couple episodes ago, he was like talking about potentially undermining Jesse and Cody. And I thought, oh, this could be interesting. That's a good hook to like end this episode on, because, you know, they're clearly the front runners. Where is this going? Where is this going to go? It didn't go anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. It went nowhere. The next episode in the Sammy boot. And I thought, okay, that's a peculiar turn of events. They left us on a cliffhanger, and it turns out there wasn't a cliff at all. We weren't hanging on a cliff. We were lying on a field, and there was no cliff. We weren't actually hanging at all. And that's where I'm starting to realize this might actually just be the Philip Shepard, where that we're getting a compelling narrative in the confessional, and we're getting a very fun, potentially lethal player from their perspective. But in execution, what we're really seeing is just that. Like it's going to make for good TV, but I don't think it's going to result and I could be wrong, and man, I would eat my words if Gabler's the winner of this season. Like, boy, that would be great. Keep that for a sound clip. But I really am just like, I feel like this is kind of leaning more towards the Philip Shepard route of how they're presenting Gabler as a narrative on Survivor 43. He's probably, my prediction is he goes to the final 3 and he doesn't win. I could see him getting a vote or something, maybe, or he's 0 votes even. Maybe he's the runner-up and they just want to have like a fun guy there. He hasn't amounted to much. And now that Cody's been taken out, I almost feel like his whole plan that he potentially could have had or his narrative was just gone. Like it's evaporated. It was hot air. It was a shadow. And I'm like, he might not be the mastermind. He might be, and this is Game of Thrones, he might be the mushroom. You know, do we trust the Gabler account?
That's a deep cut there.
It's not even a Game of Thrones thing. It's deeper than that. But do I trust the Gabler account or do I trust what is most likely everyone else's account?
Maester Carla.
Exactly. Or, we've got Jesse in the middle of it all. It's like, he's the one with the actual, like, he tells you what's going to go down, and that's what we get. Gabler's like, I'm hidden in plain sight. And to be fair, I will say, if you rewatch this episode with Cody going, Gabler does say to Cassidy and who else was there? Was it Jesse?
And Jesse, yeah.
He says, like, we should get out Carla and Cody.
Yep.
Like, they both have idols, clearly. Why not? Like, that makes sense. And to be fair, Cody goes. Mm-hmm. It's just that there isn't really a lot between, he is the first one to bring it up, but he's also like nowhere else in the episode for the most part.
There's not a lot of evidence in the episode to suggest that he was a big part of that happening. But I would say, even if I go, okay, let's assume that he's been working on that for a while and they're just not showing us. Let's assume that he did influence Jesse in that direction. Let's assume that like Jesse was convinced by Gabler that he can't beat Cody, and Gabler is a vital part of this move happening because he's the one that got Jesse to do it. That's like best case scenario for he's playing the best game that he says he's playing. The issue is that he's right about assassins.
The best assassin doesn't show up at the castle with an axe saying, I'm here to kill the king. He or she slips into the kitchen, puts a vial of poison in the king's bowl, and leaves.
The problem is nobody then crowns that assassin king. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the goal of Survivor at the end is to be the king. And if you poison the king and you take out the king, that's great. You were an effective assassin, but somebody else is going to be the king.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
You know what I mean?
That's a good metaphor. That's a good metaphor. We should hear it at the Tribal Council.
Yeah, that's let's get
that's
Jeff
better. I would live for. Yeah, I'm here for that. Give me the medieval metaphors. Yeah, I mean, I played Elden Ring. I showed up an assassin build at the castle, and I took down the lords, and I became the lord myself. But I don't know if that's Gabler in this. I don't know if that's Gabler in this story. Unfortunately, it's a fun little thought, though. Like maybe Gabler's going to be able to whip this out and get credit for it. But he had first of all, Jesse has to go. Jesse's not going anywhere until probably the final 4. Let's be honest. So. And then what are we looking at? Like, who's that final 3? I'm guessing Owen is there with Gabler and Carla, probably Cassidy. I don't know if I feel great. Like, I feel like we're in a situation where it's looking really dicey with the people left. If I were to rank them based on like who's got the highest win equity, I think Gabler is unfortunately not in the top 3.
Yeah,
is my theory, and that's like the problem. Like you said, like you can poison the king all you want. But like at the end of the day, your name isn't written in the history books. You're the assassin, the nondescript assassin, and then they've actually got the chapter about the king.
Yeah. The guy that shows up at the gates after you've killed the king is the one that becomes the king. Like then and this is probably the soundtrack of
it. Love it.
The Attack on Titan music coming into Survivor. So they play the immunity. Cassidy wins the immunity, which leads to the most interesting scenario, which is that they can't split votes between Carla and Cassidy. So they're going to either have to convince Carla. And so this was my thought process. My thought process was, no way do I trust Carla to not play her idol. I don't care how snowed I think I have her. The fact that she went, I think, rogue and voted for Sammy after, like, she called an audible, voted for Sammy during that tribal, that means she could call an audible at any time and play her idol. And so I'd be really concerned about that. I would definitely want at least 1, maybe 2 votes to split somewhere else, maybe secretly, maybe openly, just to make sure that that works. But it seems like Cody wants to go down the route of convincing Carla that they can receive 0 votes, and then he's going to put all the votes on Carla. This is what he says.
I'm stretching the truth to Carla. You know what? The hell with it. I'm lying to Carla.
Which I loved. I love
that.
His plan is a good one. It's, hey, let's just essentially say, hey, we're playing our idols, so choose amongst yourselves who you're going to vote out. I like the plan in theory. In practice, I feel like it immediately was too heavy-handed. Carla going around saying, so Cody and I have talked, and we're both not playing our idols, so... Like, she even really made that face, if you're watching the video, where it's like, you're clearly trying to imply to me that you want me to think that you're using your idol so that I'm convinced to not vote for you, which means you won't have to play your idol. And then we see the result of this too, which is that at Tribal, as they're going through that fake plan, Noelle and the jury is like, 0 chance any idols get played. And I'm like, you would be correct if this were the real fake plan and not the fake plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, execution, I felt it was lacking.
It was a little too on the nose, and it's like you're at the final 6 and everyone knows that there's 2 idols in these pockets, or these people have them. And you're going to say, you think that they're like dumb enough to like, okay, I mean, to be fair, maybe it could have gone through. The plan was we're going to spook Carla into playing her idol, but she wasn't going to play that apparently. And, if that was the original plan, which it wasn't, but if it was.
Well, that was the plan on the fake plan. Yeah, that was the second plan.
Right.
So that was the plan was, I think, better than the first plan, but still kind of flawed because you could still be worried about Carla playing that idol. But yeah, I just feel like that first plan, I think it works better if you tell Carla, let's do this separately. Like, have Carla go to Cassidy and be like, hey, so I don't know, I wasn't sure. Do you think I should play my idol? I think I might have to play my idol. I'm not sure. What do you think? And have that conversation individually. And then also have Cody going around being like, I don't know, I would love to save my idol for next week or next round, but I think I might have to play it. And kind of naturally get it into people's heads like, okay, putting votes on either of them could be disastrous. I need to guarantee my own safety, which means I need to place my votes on somebody that I know doesn't have an idol. So Owen, Cassidy, whoever, sorry. Cassidy was immune, but that's how I think the execution could have been better. But given that it was a fake plan anyway, I get it that they didn't exactly iron out the details.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it wasn't really fake, the first plan, which was like, we're going to strong arm Gabler and Owen into voting. It wasn't fake to
Carla.
Right. It wasn't fake to the one at the bottom. But yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. And it's like, it did seem a little too obvious, a little too on the nose, a little too cute. And then it turns into, of course it's too cute. Like, that's plan A, and plan A is the surface. So we're going to go beneath the surface, one plan lower. And we're going to go to Cody's plan next, which is, okay, Carla's comfortable. Now we're going to blindside Carla. And
this is the kind of strategy that we have seen on the season a few times now. Yeah. And I love this because it reminds me a lot of like playing BioShock. I remember a quote from BioShock where it was like the grifter in that game had a quote about like it's much easier to con like quote unquote smarter people because they think that they've got one up on you, which gives you all the room you need to trick them essentially. And so they've implemented that kind of strategy a lot on Survivor, where we saw it with Noelle's plan with the steal a vote, where it's like, yes, we're falling into your plan. You're tricking people, right? Like, the steal a vote is going on Owen or whoever it is. You are getting one up on people, and then we're pulling the rug out from under you. We're getting you so comfortable that you're the one tricking people that you're actually being the one tricked. So Cody pitching this plan to Carla, being like, hey, we're going to be tricking people. They're the people being duped. Makes her feel like she's on the side of the tricking and not on the side of the tricked. As opposed to, like, hey, don't worry about it. We're all voting Owen. It's fine. Like, nobody's really being tricked there. There's no plan to make her feel like she's already in on the plan. And that would make her feel, I think, a lot less comfortable. But by going to Carla and being like, so here's the plan. She's like, oh, I'm in on the plan. Let's go. We're tricking people. And then the real plan is that they're tricking her. And the irony of this is that it's the same thing that gets Cody, because he's in on the plan, which is to get Carla in on the plan to trick Carla. And by him being in on that plan, he thinks he's in on the plan, but there's actually another plan.
Yeah, get Carla. Say, hey, Carla, would you kindly not play your idol today? That's a good quote. And then she doesn't. And then all's well that ends well for Cody. Unfortunately, yeah, there's one more layer to this, which is what makes this. A lot of times in Survivor, there's usually plan A or plan B, and that's usually what we've gotten this season. In this case, we did get a concrete plan C. It came at the last minute. A part of me was watching this episode thinking, oh, I guess this is what because it felt like they were kind of building in the edit to, okay, here are the two plans. And it kind of felt like with the camera shots, I'm so used to it that I'm like, all right, I think we're going to tribal in a minute or less. And then I was like, but we still have a little bit of time. I'm like, does that mean we have like a vote, something crazy at the vote? And then it's like, oh no, we're getting a plan C. I'm like, oh, it's from Jesse? All right, this is going to be, we got to pay attention. Whenever Jesse says something, I'm like, that's usually what ends up happening. It's like, even when he doesn't get what he wants, it still is kind of what he wants. Like, I'm thinking of like when Dwight goes and he's like, Cody wants Dwight. So I'm going to let Cody have the agency this time. And I'm like, oh my God, even when he doesn't get what he wants, he still kind of gets it. So when he's like, look, and he goes to Owen, I think, first, and he's like, Cody doesn't have an idol. Cody doesn't have his idol. I have his idol. He's like, oh snap. Like, you have his idol. And that's part of I wonder if they realized how close Jesse and Cody really are, that Jesse is holding Cody's idol. And part of me is like, why does Cody not want the idol back? Is it just simply the knowledge is power?
I have to assume that this happened because there was an initial knowledge is power that was voted out, and then they reintroduced knowledge is power again. They voted that one out. And so I think the line is, let's be safe. You never know. They're probably going to throw in another one of these. Because I think, and if I'm Jesse, what I'm saying is they clearly want this thing to be played. I guarantee you they threw another one in. Let me hold on to this just in case.
And that also speaks to like the relationship between Jesse and Cody, where if they really feel comfortable with Jesse holding two idols, well, they don't know that. To be fair, actually, I don't think, does Cody know that Jesse
doesn't know about the
So that's the one
idol.
thing. So in fact, it's actually just, they think Cody thinks he's got one idol on him. And so they're thinking, well, if Cody's the story are probably being passed around that Cody would have the idol, well, he doesn't have the idol. Jesse's holding his idol. Okay, that kind of makes a little bit more sense. Still pretty late in the game at the final 6 at that point, but I guess the knowledge is power is still possibly a thing out there. And if you do trust your number one ally, you've been working with him since day one, I guess, but then also it speaks to, like, Owen said this himself, I think at the Sammy boot, he's like, look, Jesse's betrayed me before. He's blindsided Dwight. He blindsided Noelle. He's lied to me. What's to say he won't do it again? And I'm thinking, if you know Jesse, kudos to Jesse. He's managed to pull a fast one on his number one ally, who's probably got the most honesty of anyone from Jesse to completely misread him this time. This was a great little ending segment leading into Tribal, where Jesse pulls in Owen. Owen, I think, then goes to Cass. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if we saw Gabler at all or not involved in this.
I don't think we saw him get involved, but he did end up voting for Cody, so he clearly got on board.
And like to see this sort of come down, and then we get a really great segment from Jesse explaining his thought process, because up until this point, we've watched 11 and a half hours, essentially, of Jesse and Cody doing working their magic against the Red Tribe, against the Vessi Tribe, against the Merge. Week after week, we're left in this state of, is this really going to work? Is this actually good? Is this good gameplay? It's working, but you don't want to just based on the result. You need to see like what's going to happen next. And week after week, we're left in this state of like, is this like Dom and Wendell almost, but even less apparent on the island, I think, because Dom and Wendell were called out at the merge. Like, I remember that whole scene where the entire tribe is at the water well. Like, we got to get one of these two guys out. We're not getting that. Nobody is talking about Cody or Jesse all week, all season. I'm like, they're right there. And so when Jesse gets this moment to sit down and he just explains himself, it's like, wow, this is kind of what I love about this. This is what makes the moment that much better, is when the players not only making what could be their magnum opus, like game-winning move, they got the whole jury like shocked Pikachu face, just like, what? But he's also feeling it. And he's also trying to prioritize what makes Survivor so compelling is ultimately, it's like he's known Cody for 3 weeks. You know, it's like day 22. He's known his family for a lot longer. And this is ultimately going to go bigger than Cody and his friendship. And it's like, you got to try to keep your head in the game, but you can't lose your heart. And I do think that's what Jesse has going for him, which is why I don't think we're going to see a bitter jury with Jesse losing. I think if anything, Jesse might go out before if he doesn't win the game. But I love that because he's willing to show like there's a certain vulnerability in his confessional where he's struggling and he's just like, this sucks and I don't love it, but I'm also like, this is why I'm here. And I'm like, this is why I watch Survivor.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. It's that confessional in a way. It's brutal.
Fantastic confessional. It is everything about why Survivor has been on the air for 23 years. It's so good.
Tonight's blindside will be the biggest of the season for sure.
That was the
No
wrong
doubt about
one.
it.
That was Cody. This
you know,
one.
they want the million, but like they seem like, oh, this is all about the experience. For me, like, no, the experience is great, but like for me, like I need to secure my family's future, and like, and I'll do anything to do that. You know, I'll do anything. So if I gotta switch it up and be more brutal, I will.
It's so that is the core premise of Survivor right there, and we don't always get it. Like I feel like sometimes you do just get a crew on the island that's like, we're all just having fun, and that could be fun.
Yeah.
But like this emotional core of like, you guys have your fun, but like, I gotta take this. And the end result of it is so compelling. And this is such just raw Survivor energy, and it was great.
I mean, I'm glad he used the word brutal because that's the word I've been using for his gameplay much of the season. And I'm like, is it brutal or am I being like a little too like strong with my wording? But I'm like, no, this feels pretty brutal. And Jesse definitely has like a theme of framing a lot of his moves through the context of like a familial relationship, which is interesting because it also is coming back in a sense of like he has to betray his island family for his off-island family, which makes sense. And it kind of harkens back to season 1 for me, where Richard Hatch being like, I don't think this is unethical. I think this is totally within the fair play of the rules of the game here. I signed up for this. We all signed up for this. Of course, back then they didn't understand it as much. 43 seasons later, what's their excuse now? But this is what we live for. We want the players to both bring it into perspective and be willing to make like selfish plays because the game is inherently asking for one winner. There's not going to be 2 winners. There's not Cody and Jesse in the final 2 and they both get $1 million. There's going to be some way, whether they fight for it or they make a fire at the final trial. I don't know what they do to break a tie if there's an even number of jurors, but there's only one winner. And this is Jesse doing that. He's saying, I'm going to be the winner. I love you, Cody. You've been my man. Like, I'll see you in Hawaii or Iowa or wherever you're from, Idaho. I don't know, but this is it. Like, I'm here to win the money for my family, and this is how it has to happen. And it's brilliant also because he's literally got safety at the final 5, which is just like an added cherry on top of like he flushed 2 idols and he got a big threat. To be fair, I feel like he could have beaten Pete and Cody in the final tribal, but maybe he couldn't have. It's hard to say for sure. And maybe I think this episode made it less apparent to me. Like the narrative is one thing and then the on-island narrative might be something different. So maybe, as Jesse said, like Cody is sort of in lockstep with him. And that's sort of he did say, like, to an extent they've been perceived, or he feels like they've sort of had a similar trajectory. So it does maybe clash with the idea that they're not seen that way, if he feels like they might be being seen that way and he has to take them out. And I do think, was that Gabler who said, like, you and Cody or something? And then so
again,
maybe
that's why, like, again, I'm willing to maybe give Gabler some benefit of the doubt when it comes to, like, maybe he did get in Jesse's head about this because he was saying those things. Or maybe he was just echoing something that already existed. But either way, like, clearly that mindset existed for Jesse, that, like, maybe he couldn't beat Cody. But, like, yeah, I just feel like the emotional element of this is everything that I want from a player of Survivor, where, you know,
or Big Brother,
but, like, there is an understanding of the strategic element of the game that, like, hey, this is how the game is played. And, like, that's fine. Like, I can accept that. At the same time, this is really emotional and it sucks to do it. And instead of, like, coming up with, like, justifications in game, like, you know what, Cody did do this one time and Cody's lied, so it's okay that I'm lying to him. There's just, like, an acceptance of, like, yeah, I'm betraying my friend here because this is the game, but it still sucks, but I have to do it. He's, like, accepting the full force of both ends of it. And that's, like, that's how I want to see people play Survivor, because it gives you that, like, recognition that this is a strategic game, and also the emotional weight of what it means to betray people in a social game. And I feel like usually you just get one extreme or the other. Getting them both in one package is so good. And we'll talk about this too, but Cody's reaction felt similar to me, where it was like, yeah, this sucks. F you, Jesse.
like, fine.
But you got me, you know, like, he was clearly very hurt and upset about it, but also recognized it was a game. And, like, for me, at least, that is the perfect recipe for, like, how I want to see people play, because I get it. Some people are like, when people leave and they're like, you got me. Great job, guys. Applause all around. It's kind of like, oh, we want you to, like, feel like you care. But then at the same time, when people are, like, super pissed, and they're like, I can't believe you would ever do this to me. It's like, that can feel like a little much sometimes, even if it's understandable, especially if they hold on to it. And so for me, like, having this perfect balance of, like, I can't believe you did this to me. I guess good job. Like that's the beauty of Survivor for me. So great stuff there. And that's, you know, Killer Cody.
I'm out here as, you know, Wild Thing, Killer Cody, Cowboy Cody, call me whatever you want, but the switch definitely turned. And yeah, sometimes I surprise even myself.
Yeah, because
tonight's blindside will be the biggest of the season for sure, no doubt about it.
Yep.
He got by the same thing that I talked about before. He thought he was the one tricking Carla into thinking she was the one tricking everyone else, but in reality, he was being tricked as well. And the third layer of this plan comes into place. I think this was one of my favorite tribals of the season, not because we got anything of, like, serious substance, because obviously we didn't. Like, it was still layer one of a 3-layer plan.
Yeah.
But that was kind of what was interesting to me, because I don't know about anyone else, but I came into this tribal thinking, this is happening. Cody's done. Like, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they didn't show us getting the idol back because he gave the idol back. And I think this is going to happen. And so knowing that, watching them play out a play where two people are playing different versions of the fake plan was so interesting to me. Cody being like, yeah, I'm playing my idol, knowing he doesn't even have his idol on him. And Carla being like, yeah, and I'm playing mine, knowing that she doesn't plan to play hers, but that Cody thinks he's tricking her into not playing hers. And then Jesse being like, yeah, and I guess we're just stuck out here. What are we going to do? Pretending to buy into the first plan because he's tricking Cody into thinking he's tricking Carla, and tricking Carla into thinking that he's being tricked. And all the while flushing Carla's idol and taking out Cody. And so watching all of that complexity, knowing the details of the plan, was so much more interesting to me than watching like, I don't know what's going to happen. They're talking about tides.
Yeah, that's part of what I love about this episode is that you watch it and you look at like the beginning of the strategy scene after the immunity challenge, and it's Cody and Carla creating two different plans at the same time. And then we watch the tribal council knowing that when Jesse plays that first idol, both Cody and Carla have two the alarm bells are going off, and they're for two different reasons. And it's like Cody's is like, wait, that wasn't supposed to go what? And then Carla's like, wait, that what? And it's for totally different reasons. And they both play. There's two idols played, which is always a fun time. But I think in this case, knowing the machinations of how we got here made it all the more satisfying, and probably lends credence to Jesse maybe finding success at the end of this whole season. But being able to see it come out, we see the steps to get to it, and then we see the payoff. I also felt like we were going to probably get Cody blindsided at this point, and I thought like we're probably going to see this actually play out, where I don't know exactly who he's going to play the idol for. Jesse.
I thought he was going to play it for himself. I was surprised when he played it for Owen.
Which is also like credit to Jesse. He didn't even need to play it on himself.
Correct play too, to play it on Owen.
Oh,
it looks
for sure.
more impressive to the jury, and it spooks Carla even more.
I thought, I guess in the case of like who knows what could happen, you play it on yourself in the event that something goes down, you're at least not on the table to get votes in a revote or who knows what. You never know what kind of advantages people will pull out of their pocket, but. In that case, he plays it for Owen. It just furthers a potential relationship in the final five with Owen. Look, dude, we're safe. I played it on you, so you got a vote. You were a backup plan from Carla, who voted for you, and now Carla is unfortunately flushed out. She didn't need to, but I get why she played it. And I don't fault her so much because the plan was that wasn't the plan. And it's like, why did he play the idol on one of the two targets? And the one I voted for, not even like Gabler, it's like the one she voted for. She wrote Owen's name down. She was the only person to do that, but she expected there. So it's like, that doesn't make sense. And that's the point. And that's what he wants. He wants to spook her. And I think that's very clever. I can't think off the top of my head so many times where somebody has like played an idol, not so much to play the idol, but to get somebody else to flush their idol. Usually you make it obvious, and then you need to get them to like feel like it's obviously they have to play their idol, but we're going to get out their number one ally. Like we're going to get like collateral damage. We're not going to get them. We're going to get like their closest lieutenant. But in this case, it's like, we're not going for you, Carla, but we're going to get your idol out, and we're going to use another idol to scare you into, feeling like this is not supposed to happen. And that's what I love that.
It's such a well orchestrated move. And like, I think maybe one thing to think about is like, wherever Jesse falls on the list of either winners or came close or whatever, like taking a look at these last 3 episodes and saying like, has there ever been a better series of like 3 back-to-back moves like played out? It's got to be up there because it's a pretty specific stat, but like just round after round, he has executed different kinds of intricate plays that have all gone flawlessly. And it's incredibly impressive. And I think this is the most impressive one of the bunch so far. Last week was more impressive than the week before. They just keep escalating in impressiveness. And it's very good stuff. And it reminds me of the tides.
Jeffrey.
Oh, Jeffrey.
Oh, Jeffrey. Oh, Jeffrey.
Oh, Jeffrey.
So that's it. Let's talk about, after all of that, we've kind of hinted at it, but was it the right play? It was very well executed, but was it necessary, and was it a good thing to do? Is, I think, the big question. And this is one that, like my issue last week, could be resolved when I watch the finale and everything goes perfectly for Gibson. But before we know those things, I have to consider the potential downsides. One of which is they didn't see him when he took out Noel, and he talked about how this was his move at Tribal. They didn't look at him when he took out Sammy, which was clearly his move. Surely standing up at Tribal saying, this is, we talked about the social contract. It's time to flip things around. I'm playing this idol on Owen. And then, like, Cody stands up, shakes his hand like, you got me. The jury's freaking out. Surely they're sitting there like, okay, this guy's on the golden path to win this game. Surely they're thinking they need to do everything they can to take him out from this point forward. Now, obviously they can't at Final 5, but they might try at Final 4. So there's some downside there. I'm not super upset about it at this point, given that he does have the idol for Final 5, and then he has a chance to win immunity at 4, and even if he loses, a chance to win fire, which is 2 chances to make it to Final 3. Not a bad spot to be, especially if you're a guaranteed win at the Final 3. So I don't really hate that too much. But was there an easier path? Because for what we saw, Cody was saying like, hey, I'm ride or die for Jesse. And if Cody's in the Final 4 with you, you probably have a much better chance of surviving. If either you or Cody win immunity, now, like, Cody, does he take you there? Or does he betray you? That's something that is a big consideration, right? If Jesse feels like Cody turns on him there, then yeah, maybe this is the call. But if he feels like Cody was locked in to bring him to the end, that Final 4 spot, I kind of do wish that I had somebody else fighting for me at that Final 4. Especially considering the other side of it, which is he's concerned that even if Cody does bring him, that he can't beat Cody.
Right.
It's difficult for me to judge that because there's so much we don't know. But from my perspective, it seemed like Jesse had the edge there. Like even at the Tribal, you had the jury kind of reacting to Jesse being like, yeah, I was trying to like stay out of stuff. And the jury was like, Jesse not planning things. Like, I think the jury knows what Jesse's been doing.
Right.
Second, I think that Jesse, I don't know if he plans to do this, but I feel like Jesse has a Marianne Heartstopper in his idol from Janine.
Yeah.
That was an incredible moment on the show.
Oh, yeah. Up to tonight, that was the moment for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Imagine whether it's at Final 5 or ideally at Final Tribal, when he whips out the idol and says, hey, maybe you're having trouble differentiating my game from Cody's. But let me tell you this. I had this ever since Dwight was voted out. You know why? I've been holding on to Janine's idol secretly this whole time. I think the jury would be blown away. Depending on how he I didn't sell it very well in that example, but like there's a showmanship that I think you could be used to make that really, really impressive. I think that's the showstopper that he could use in the worst case scenario where they don't already recognize his game. I'm not super concerned if I'm Jesse about Cody beating me, but that's from my perspective, and clearly my perspective is warped because I didn't understand why nobody saw him and Cody as close. And so there probably was a perception on the island that maybe they were playing similar games, or maybe that Cody was playing an even better game, and that's part of why he's been so safe, and that's part of why he was concerned. Still, not something I think he should have been as concerned about from my perspective, but it's difficult to say. So, Peridium, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I completely agree, but I also wonder, like, Cody is an elevator salesman. Who knows what he could. he sells a lift, and all of a sudden he builds a lift onto the podium, and he goes from 2 to 1. It's that simple. Cody's louder. He talks more. He seems to be quite a charmer. He's a little bit more of the extrovert to Jesse's introvert. A part of me is like, there are a lot of players in the history of Survivor who played second fiddle and went to the end and lost to their number one. And I do wonder if, like, say he didn't make this move and he goes down with Cody and Cody wins, like, we'll never get that narrative. And it's hard. This is the hard thing. Like, our perspective is so heavily warped. When I analyze Survivor, episode after season, it's so result based that it's impossible without, like, the Big Brother live feeds to know exactly how we got to those results. What is the recipe that made the final result a reality, and then who can we give credit to? We don't know in Survivor. We have to just take it at face value, and that's the difficulty with a lot of like making ultimatums or making conclusions. So on one hand, I'm looking at it like Jesse is at the final 5 now. He's got the idol. Results-based speaking, that's pretty damn good. We also know there's nothing else that's probably going to get in his way at the final 5, so he's probably at the final 4, regardless of whether he plays the idol. Like, he should probably play it if he doesn't win immunity. If he wins immunity, even better. He can do the Marianne thing and bust it out if he gets to the final 3 at that point.
Even if he does play it, I think just dropping at Final Tribal, hey, by the way, that was just Janine's idol.
Yeah, like
would be great.
Like we saw Xander play the idol at the final 5, but that was not a showstopper. Nobody really paid attention. It was like, we know you had it. Nobody cared. In this case, nobody knew he had it, and he very well could become a big target at the final 5, and that could be a big stopper. The problem is there's still one round between the 5 and the 3, and having Cody there could have been, if Jesse doesn't win the final 4 fire making, if he's in it, which, to be fair, he hasn't won an immunity, so maybe realistically he won't be. He'll be in the final 4 fire making challenge. It would be great to have a 50% chance of not being in that position with Cody by your side, where he could win immunity and take you to the final 3, and then you can, do whatever you need to hopefully beat him. And that increases your odds of getting to the final 3. This move could very well decrease his odds of getting to the final 3 because of the final 4 fire making tiebreaker odds. It's a little bit convoluted. I ultimately do think I'm ultimately over the moon with Jesse this episode, and I think that I'm thinking he'll be okay. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. I do feel like on one hand, not having Cody in the game, it puts him at peril, but because we've never seen him get targeted up to this point, and he's been pulling out these moves, I wonder, like, does Gabler's perception like help him a little bit? Because Gabler probably thinks on some level that he is the assassin who's going to become the king. And maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he's like, I can beat Jesse in the final 3. I can work with Jesse. Because Gabler's perspective is like, he is hiding in plain sight. He is the winner. Nobody's taking him out. They're going to look like idiots when he gets to the final 3. It doesn't matter who he's sitting next to. Maybe that's the extra X factor in the recipe that we haven't accounted for. Maybe that's an extra vote. Maybe playing the idol on Owen, and Owen being so dead set against Carla will help him engender Owen to his side at the final 5. I don't know. I wonder, like, his threat level isn't very high right now. And after this move, a part of me feels like it's got to be like astronomical. But then again, I don't think there's a reason his name hasn't come up all season, ever, out of anyone's mouth that we've seen. I kind of feel like it's probably not. I think what we saw in the preview, for example, was Carla and Cassidy going after each other. And for some reason, Owen's like frustrated and kicking a coconut, like the Charlie Brown. His story arc is coming full. It's at the end. He kicked the coconut on the beach. It's like the football. And I'm like, I just have this funny feeling that, like, I think there's a higher reality, a higher chance that Jesse doesn't even have to play his idol at the final 5 if he doesn't win immunity. I feel like that's more of a reality at this point, just based on the season thus far. Like, there's only so many times where I can be like, surely not this time. Surely. Okay, at this point, it's like, you know what? Let's just write it out. He probably doesn't have to play the idol at the final 5. He doesn't win immunity. Maybe he gets taken to the final 3. Who knows? Maybe Gabler takes him. I don't know. But yeah, ultimately, I like this from Jesse. If I were to sign him a Stockwatch number, if we want to go and give him a number.
Let's go straight into it. Let's start with Jesse.
I mean, I'm giving Jesse a 10. I gave Marianne a 10 last season at the final 6 when we spoke. And I covered a lot of her bases and why I thought this was a game-winning move. It was tricky because even with Marianne, I thought she's not 100% in the final 3. This could skyrocket her. She could have a good story. Maybe she'll become a target. I do think she was surrounded by a few bigger threats than Jesse might be at this point. But I also feel like there's enough of a rift between Cassie and Carla. Owen's on his side last we saw. Owen also doesn't seem to be a leader as much as a follower. Sorry, Owen, if you're watching. That's what I've gotten. And then there's Gabler, who's sort of such an X factor. Like, who knows what he's doing. I feel like this is a 10 for me. And I feel like if this isn't a 10, I don't really know what is. Yeah. And it just has to be based on the season thus far, even leading up to this moment. Like, this is the magnum opus that if Jesse wins, like we'll look at this and go like, that was him cutting Cody, flushing 2 idols, flushing his own ally's idol that he held for the whole time, and not even playing an idol in himself, and having like a third plan on top of a fake plan on top of a fake plan where he got the 2 idol holders to completely bamboozle themselves. And it's just like, you don't get that much information. You don't get that much to talk about for one player in one episode very often. This is like maybe Tony taking out Sophie in Winners at War at the final. Yeah, this is more than that, in my opinion, as far as what's going on. So yeah, and it's at the final 6, and he's got an idol left still in his pocket that nobody knows about, like the Marianne of it all. It's a 10 for me.
It's a 10. It's a 10 from Peridium. And I have to agree. It's like, it's a tricky thing because I do think that he's potentially leaving himself vulnerable at 4. And I think particularly interesting for me because, I don't know everything that Jesse knows. He's in the situation. He has reads on people. He has relationships with people. He might have a better read on Cody than I could ever have just watching an edited show. And maybe he doesn't feel like Cody 100% keeps him around at 4 if he has the chance. Maybe he thinks Cody might put him into fire. And if that's the case, then yeah, I'm taking Cody out here every time. If I don't feel 100% confident that Cody keeps me around, I'm probably cutting Cody. But if I do feel 100% confident that Cody keeps me around, personally, I probably don't make this move. Which is a weird thing to say because I think it's a really impressive move and it might really work out for Jesse. And it's not often that I would say, this is a great move that I wouldn't make. Normally I would say, yeah, I think I would make this one. But like, no, I think knowing myself, I would take, knowing that there's risks on either side, I would take the route where I'm keeping the guy around so I don't have to betray him, and B, have a better shot of getting to the end where I can at least sell my case. And I'd rather get to the final 3 with a great chance to win against Cody than come short at final 4 and not even get to the final 3. And so that's where my head would be at. But I can also recognize that that's not necessarily the best way to go, especially given that, again, Jesse probably has a better read than me. So I have to give Jesse the benefit of the doubt here. He has consistently proven to know what he's doing. He has consistently come out on top after every single move where I've pointed out the downsides. It's always worked out for him. And I think that coming into this finale, I think you're right. I think you have to give him the 10. It's a little 10 trumpets for Jesse. There you go.
Keeping up with the medieval theme of it all.
Yes. We'll do it's a little bit of this. We're at about equal levels of audio engineering here at the Stockwatch podcast and Survivor. All right, so that was Cody. That was Jesse. What about Cody, who was voted out here? I mean,
yeah,
it's a weird spot. So again, just to reset this for people that don't know, but we tend to rate the people voted out on a slightly different scale. Obviously, they have no chance to win, so we're mostly just grading their performance on the way out. So that means that theoretically, they could have a higher rating than somebody still in the game, but that's just kind of like their on the way out rating rather than like their chance to win the game, obviously.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Cody?
How did Cody play like in this particular episode,
Yeah.
in spite of the fact that it ultimately is going to end his game? I was a little positive with Cody in that, he had the basic Survivor outline that on most episodes would work and does work. It's just that he was playing against, I think, a player of equal, if not greater skill in Jesse, who just had one more card in his deck and pulled it out and played it. And even then, there's a debate of like, was this the best move for Jesse? It might decrease his probability of getting to the final 3. It probably dramatically increases his odds of winning. I was sort of in the middle on the fence. And at one point I was like, I think overall this isn't like bad gameplay. It's tough because I feel like he shouldn't be worried. He should have held it. I feel like he should have gotten his idol and kept it. And I guess it would have resulted in him going, but with an idol in his pocket instead of it losing Carla, getting Carla's idol to be bluffed and to be played. But it still results in Cody not playing his idol almost certainly, which is just as bad of a look. I left with like I was in the lower end. I currently had him at a 4, just because it's like he got the wool pulled over him, and believed the fake plan, and then got duped by the other fake plan that he was a part of. And I don't know. I'm like, he probably should have just. I don't know. It's tough because Jesse there isn't a lot of information that I got other than him duping Carla, and then just getting duped by Jesse. And
Yeah, it's
he's
tricky.
in the middle, but
Yeah,
it's not
it's
bad,
tricky.
but it's not amazing.
Yeah, like I liked his plan. It was a
Right.
good plan. It was a good fake plan, and then a good plan on top of the fake plan. He just got outplanned. So if that was it, I'd be like, 6 or 7. Like, great stuff. You got voted out because you were too much of a threat. Like, you were on your way to potentially winning the game. But I also have to consider the fact that he willingly gave up his idol right before driving to Jesse. And the reasoning is theoretically, hey, knowledge is power. I assume this is the reasoning, that knowledge is power could screw us up here. But there's ways around that, and there's risks. Like, it's not like you were planning to use your idol this round anyway. I feel like
Also, if like the plan is like you're gonna play your idol, then what does the knowledge is power really? I don't know. Like if you, I don't. Anyway, keep going.
yeah, and so like I get it. Like, if the knowledge is power is there, and like say Owen has it, and he knows that Cody hid the secret plan, but the non-secret plan is that he's going to play the idol. So it means he's probably holding the idol. Owen uses knowledge is power, takes his idol. Maybe they then vote him out. Whatever. I get that that's a risk theoretically, but I feel like you should be holding on to your idol. At some point, you've got to hold on to it. You've let Jesse hold on to it for too long. This is the One Ring, right? Like, it will corrupt over time. The longer Jesse holds that idol, the more ownership he has over it. If you let somebody hold on to your idol for one tribal, they'll probably give it right back. But if you let them hold on to it for half the game, they're going to start to think about ways to keep it because they don't want to have to give it back. And I feel like that is a huge danger there. And then another part of this is that, why didn't Cody just play his idol? Like, I get it. If you keep it, you're guaranteed Final Four. But
Especially when the fake plan is to do the same thing to Carla that's about to be done to
Exactly.
you. I would
it's
think
like
just
he
play
came
it safe.
so close to winning that immunity. He's very good at immunity challenges. Like, you have a great chance of winning immunity at 5 anyway. So why not just play your idol here and guarantee your safety? I think
he's worried that Carla might play her idol and Carla's the target, I think. If he plays his idol, he spooks her, which is the opposite of Jesse. Jesse's like, I don't want to spook, or I want to spook her into playing her idol. And I think Cody's thinking, I don't want to play my idol because I want to spook the target who is comfortable into being uncomfortable.
I get that too. Here's the thing. If I'm Cody, I get what he was doing. And I don't think it was a bad play. This isn't like, oh, shame on you, Cody, for doing this. But I think the direction I would have liked to see him go in would have been, hey, why not just play your idol and take out Owen? Owen's great at challenges. You take out Owen, you play your idol, guarantee yourself safety. Now you're competing against Gabler, who won one thing, Carla, who's now hurt, Jesse, who hasn't won anything, and Cassidy, who's a beast.
Yeah.
You basically are, unless it's a Gabler specific or whatever competition, you're mostly competing against Cassidy. You have a great chance to win that immunity at 5, and now you're at the 4. Like,
plus, if Carla flushes, if you get her idol out, you're at the final 5 with 2 targets, and Cassidy
Exactly.
and Carla, one wins immunity, vote the other out. They don't have an idol.
Exactly. And you've got Jesse. If you trust
And
Jesse,
Gabler.
if you think you have Jesse anyway, then you still think you have Jesse at 5, and there's no need to worry. You think you might have Gabler. You probably still have Cassidy and Carla going against each other. If you take Owen out, I just feel like you're in a pretty good place. I feel like he was undone by the allure of like, if I can just go one more round, I'll have it for sure. Which gets people, because the thing is that you're thinking that, but because you're thinking that, other people are also thinking that. And so if you're thinking, if I can just get through one more round, then I'll be guaranteed Final Four. Other people who know you have an idol are also going to think, if he gets through one more round, he's going to be good till Final Four. So we got to get him one round early. And so that, I think, is something else to consider here with Cody. Again, not a huge fault. I think he plays this pretty well. If he can trust Jesse, this goes flawlessly, and he's at the Final Five with an idol, with an ally that he can trust, and everything's going swimmingly for him. Unfortunately, like Carla, he couldn't trust Jesse. He got bamboozled. He let Jesse hold his idol. He didn't play his idol, and he ultimately gets voted out. So it's tricky, but I think a 4 feels fair to me.
Yeah, I felt like a 5, especially in relation to the other players that I've rated. I feel like I got to give him a little bit of a lesser than the 5, just because I'm like, yeah, on one hand, I liked his gameplay up until he gets voted out, but at the same time, there's a couple of flaws in there that bring him down. But I'm like, I don't want to like fault him too hard. There's some things that he did that was okay. It was good on like an average episode of Survivor. It probably works, but not this time. This is an average episode.
Yeah.
So
all right, let's talk about Owen. Owen, I said last week, if he didn't take the opportunity this week to make a bigger play, I was gonna drop him a bit. Here's the thing: he does make a play. You know, he does take out Cody, which ultimately is a great thing for him. So it's not like he had to make a play on Jesse, because he takes out Cody, which I think is great. Again, you know, heading into the Final Five, he has a great chance to win immunity now. Now Owen is in the spot I just said Cody would have been in. He's basically competing against Cassidy as the next best challenge threat, unless Carla can recover. And he has a great chance to win that immunity, which is great. And even if he doesn't, it's not like he's necessarily target number 1. I feel like Carla is a bigger jury threat. Cassidy is a bigger jury threat. And the two of them together still might be targets moving forward. And even if they aren't, you still have the out of like, hey, this Jesse guy has been doing real well. Now, obviously, there's an idol there with Jesse, and that could backfire. But, you know, that doesn't mean that it would backfire on Owen necessarily. It might backfire on somebody else. Right. So I don't hate Owen's position, but I do think that, like, I can't give Owen a lot of credit for being in this position, because according to what we saw, he was perfectly fine with the plan to take out Carla here, which would have left Cody and Jesse still in the game together, both with idols, and that would have been pretty disastrous for him. And luckily, Jesse decided to go in a different direction. And I think we can always give Owen and other people involved, like I gave Cassidy credit last week, some credit for being that option for Jesse, having that connection with Jesse where Jesse felt comfortable enough with Owen that he could go to him with this plan and that he could trust him with it, and that it worked. And I think that we can give him credit for playing safe enough that, again, he's survived long enough and been in a position so that he's in a position to take advantage of this kind of lucky break. And those are things I can give him for sure. And again, for all we know, he is secretly doing things behind the scenes to make these things happen, but that's not what we're seeing in the episodes. So, so it's tricky for me with Owen. I think that I have to give him, and this might be low considering that I do still think he could win this game, but I think I have to give him a 5 in this for this episode. I just feel like from what he's saying in confessionals to what he's doing in the game, I feel like he's not living up to the potential that he wants to live up to. He's not taking the opportunities that that he probably would want to take if he saw them. And I feel like he's in kind of a rough spot when it comes to jury votes. I feel like he's probably like number 4 out of the final 5 in terms of my likelihood to win a jury vote. And that's not the best place to be, but it's not terrible.
It's rough when it's a final 3 though.
That's the thing. I feel like if he's in the final 3, it's probably with Gabler. and then he just needs to beat one other person, right? It's just like if he's there with Gabler and Cassidy or Carla, like Carla's been taking some hits lately. Maybe he can do something there. Like it's not impossible, especially if he like wins out to get there. Like I don't think he's drawing dead yet, but I don't think this was great. Even though Cody leaving was good for him, I don't think overall this was great for him.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna give Owen a 1. No, I'm kidding.
It's like, I don't have the soundbite ready.
No, I'm not giving him a 1. I just wanted him to hear me say that. I'm gonna give him a 5 as well. I have him down as a 5. Short-term safety, I feel like he is probably one of the safer players, at least going into the final 5. I think we could get a idle bamboozle at the final 5 if Jesse gets any heat for this. I don't think Owen's going to be on the receiving end. I could be wrong. I feel like Owen is one of the surefire bets to be in the final 3, which means that he's going to at least have a chance to win the game that a couple other players won't. I personally like Owen a lot. I have been rooting for him. And his episode gameplay was okay. He wasn't the leader. He wasn't the guy orchestrating the plan, but he did go through with it. He was on the right side of the vote. Owen has sort of been surviving, but he's not really thriving, which is what puts me at a 5 for him. He's not down in the dumps, even though he might say he is, but he's also not in a position where he's gathering a lot of win equity. Again, he might have to sit next to Gabler and one other player and talk down the other player and hope the jury doesn't really buy into Gabler's perspective of things, which I doubt they will. These kinds of finalists usually don't win ever. In fact, they'd never win. So that's why I'm not sure Gabler would break a mold. So like Owen's kind of in a final 2 if he's in the final 3-ish. But at the moment, it's really like Jesse's game to lose if Carla is as big of a threat as she appears to be. You don't want Carla around. But then I also worry for Cassidy's odds against Owen. And I'm like, well, that's 3 out of 5 people, Owen. And you don't seem super confident on yourself at the moment. And you're kind of following. So unless you can like get out Jesse in a spectacular way, maybe you beat him in fire, win immunity, take the immunity necklace off, beat Jesse in fire making. I don't know what it's going to take, but you got to do something. And I feel like his MO up to this point hasn't really been that. He's kind of been the frustrated Survivor superfan. So I've sort of just been left mid. I give him a 5 out of 10.
Yeah. And again, this is Survivor. So for all we know, like Owen goes on to win the game, and he was actually in a great spot here, and we just couldn't see it. And I think like retroactively, I think it would be interesting to do like like if I had the time, like if we ever rewatched a season and then went through the Stockwatch ratings and then knowing the end result, what I would give them in hindsight. Would be an interesting experiment someday. But either way, yeah, that's where Owen is. Gabler, how do you feel about Gabler?
Honestly, Gabler's in a pretty similar situation to Owen. For me, they're kind of like a package deal, just as far as they both were on the same side of the vote this episode. They both kind of had the same beats. They were working together. We saw a couple of scenes with them strategizing, and they're kind of in the same dilemma. They don't have an idol. They're one of the exposed, vulnerable players this episode. What are they going to do about it? They got lucky that this Jesse's plan fell into their lap. I also think short-term wise, I think Gabler is a likely finalist. I think he's likely to make it through Final 5. I think he's likely to make it through Final 4. It will take one of these guys, Gabler or Owen, losing in the fire-making to somehow get knocked out, I feel like. And that's less to do with them and more to do with just circumstances of who are they up against. Maybe Gabler wins immunity and takes Owen to the Final 3. So I'm kind of just at a 5 for Gabler as well, in that his win equity isn't any higher than it was, but it's not lower. I don't think he's shooting himself in the foot. He went on the right side of the vote, and maybe there's a chance that the X factor that he has presented, that he has, the whole Philip Shepard of it all, maybe it'll come through. I don't know. Maybe the assassin will become the king. Who knows? That's usually not how the story works, but maybe this time it will. I got him at a 5. I sort of am in the same spot with them, though they kind of were lockstep most of the episode. And Gabler had the plan. He was the first one to target the two people with idols. So maybe there's some credit for him there.
Yeah, I had been a little more positive on Gabler in the last couple of episodes, but that was mostly because I was thinking that he had an option in front of him where, ironically, where he goes up to the gates with an army and takes
Yeah.
down Jesse and Cody. I thought maybe Gabler was the person that was going to get Carla and Owen together to take that shot. And if he was, and he made that power play visibly, he might have enough sort of like credit to actually win some votes in the final tribal. And that possibility still theoretically exists if he leads a charge against, say, Jesse next round or at Final Four or whatever the case may be there. But I can't help but feel like this was a missed opportunity for Gabler as well. Even if he was, again, giving him as much credit as possible, even if he was the assassin that put poison in Jesse's ear to make this happen, I don't think that's enough for Gabler. I think he needs to be able to actually take credit for it and make the move himself. I want him to storm those gates. And the fact that he didn't, I think, is an irrevocable loss. He can't get that back. I think if he tries to claim credit for this, they will laugh him out the door. I don't think it will work. And so I think he just lost his biggest and best opportunity to really get some respect from the jury. And again, I could be completely wrong. Like, I have no idea what that jury is thinking. For all I know, maybe they're rooting for Gabler because they're like, this guy is so funny. But that's sort of my perception of it. And I think he's a really interesting player. But I think if he is a 0 vote finalist or something along those lines, I think this is what he couldn't see when he was playing. And if he's not, then it's, then I couldn't see something in the episodes that he can on the island. But so for me, I'm going to drop him down to a 4 this week.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like of everyone left, I just have a hard time seeing him as the winner right now. I think it would be very amusing if I was wrong. I think it would be very interesting. But those are my thoughts on Gabler. Let's talk about Carla, because Carla had been leading the Stockwatch for what feels like the whole season, up until a couple of weeks ago when Jesse overtook her. And man, these last 2 episodes in particular, I feel like she has taken a beating, both physically and in the game.
Yep.
What a wild immunity challenge where she is close to potentially winning the whole thing, and I guess her fingers just lock up, and then she ends up twisting her ankle trying to like shake her fingers out. Like, this was disastrous.
Yeah.
And a tough spot to be in for somebody who was such a good physical competitor, who might have been able to just like win out and has clearly the social game and the respect to potentially win this game. It feels like it's just all falling apart for Carla, in that now she's going to theoretically have more trouble winning immunities, and strategically the game has just been completely stolen out from under her by Jesse. Last time, trying to take out Cass, failing, taking all of the blame for it this time, getting caught in a lie to Cassidy this time, getting tricked into flushing her idol out getting tricked into the initial fake plan but from Cody, and then doubly tricked in the fake plan from Jesse. She was tricked either way, loses an idol for ultimately no reason. I don't blame her for playing it. Like, if Jesse plays the idol on Owen, I think you just have to play your idol there. But, at the end of the day, I don't blame her because she was so far behind that I don't blame her for not realizing it. But at the end of the day, she was so far behind. And it's so weird to see because I felt like she had been doing such a good job. And I'm not sure what has changed, if anything has changed. I think probably if we're going to say, hey, Carla is the player we thought she was for the first 20 days of this game, I think that if that's the case, then I think we point to Jessie and we say she's a great player who just completely got tricked by Jesse. She trusted Jesse too much, and Jesse made her look like a bad player because he was so good at getting her to trust him, and she shouldn't have. We can also theoretically take the route of like, you know, maybe we were assuming things of her that weren't really there. I don't think that's going to be entirely accurate. I feel like undeniably she had a lot of, she was in really good positions. Her relationships were really good. And as they're saying on the island, she is seen as a threat. Physically, she's fantastic. Like, I don't think we can go back and say she's not as good as we thought she was. I think that ultimately she is a good player and was playing a good game, but has run into some Jesse-shaped roadblocks. That is definitely my theory at this point. And I don't think it's impossible still for her to win this game. Either she could take the bull by the horns here and target Jesse at 4, or somebody else could do it for her and she could win a final 3 with, say, Owen and Gabler. I think those things are totally possible. I don't think she's out of it yet, but definitely she has been taking a bit of beating here.
Yep.
It's a tough one. What do you think?
I was saying, what's the number after all that? Yeah, I've had the same exact roller coaster with her. At the beginning of the season, I had her as the front runner. Going into the merge, I was like, I felt the highest on her. I didn't really feel too bad. I think it was around the double tribal at the final 10 where I started to question, like, okay, this seems like she's in a position where she's not doing what's best for her game, but she sort of went with it and went with Sammy, I think, at the last second to blindside her number 1 ally and James. And I'm like, that sort of opened her up to get taken advantage of because she's losing people who are closer to her and maybe feeding her the right information. And now she's being fed the wrong information. And I guess maybe she misjudged her relationships, probably with Jesse to a certain extent. And now she's been led astray. And Sammy, she wanted to work with him a little, or he was trying to work with her, and he's gone. So she's kind of left in a situation. And then her number 1 ally at that point was Cassidy. And now look, that's like the last person and it wants her in the game.
I wonder if James was very important to her
I do feel like that was the turning point in the downward when it started going down. I thought that could be, but is it too early? And I think when you look at somebody like Jesse, where you're like, is this too early to take out Dwight, who is like you're married on the island to him? No, doesn't seem to be, because he's got a lot of other people with him. He's got a Cody, and I think that James may have been Carla's Cody. I don't know. Maybe Cassidy, but that clearly hasn't worked out now, and she's left in and I think on the top of that, the being left out of the vote and being the fake plan to the fake plan to the real plan, also having the problem physically is going to be a part of your Survivor game, whether she can't really control that, but that's going to play a part in this finale where I don't think she's going to be the player to win that final immunity or win that final 5 immunity and keep herself there. Maybe she will. That would be interesting to see. You don't really need your hands like to make the fire. You'd probably be okay. I feel like gripping the flint.
I mean, I feel like the hands thing was probably temporary because of all of the whatever was happening.
Yeah,
it's the
get to that
ankle I'm
point.
mostly worried about.
And you don't need that for fire making. So if she can somehow win, like if it's like it probably won't be, because the final 5 tends to be a quite extensive challenge. It's a harder one, and then she's not gonna be able to move much. I feel like she's the most likely to go at the final 5 at this point. So her short-term safety to me is critical, and I think that she's likely going to be the fifth place person. Also, on top of the fact that people seem to read her threat level as being quite threatening to win the game. Seems like people have held her up in high estimation up to this point, and it's sort of all come undone episode by episode up to this final 5 this final 6 total blindside, as Debbie would say. So I left her with, at this point, I gave her a 3. And I maybe am too harsh, but I felt like the episode gameplay, it's not only did she not get voted out, but like she got blindsided, and it didn't even result in her leaving, which isn't good. It's not good to get voted out in Cody's spot, but I don't feel like Carla has nobody on her side at all. She's completely on the outs. It seems like she is the next person lined up to go. Physically, I don't have faith that she's going to be able to win that immunity. I think she can win, which is what's keeping me in contention for her. I think she could beat a Gabler and an Owen, who I gave a 5 for this episode. Overall, win equity, I think Carla is higher than those two guys. But I don't think her odds of getting to that final 3 I think they're the lowest of all 5. And for me, that's a huge problem. Like, yeah.
It's such a tricky one for me because she really did just take L after L in this episode. Like, from the very beginning of the episode, she gets caught in the lie with Cassidy. Then she gets injured. Then she gets tricked into a ploy that nearly sends her out, and instead she gets tricked into flushing her idol. And either way, like she has 0 wins in this episode.
I mean, it could be it could be a 2, it could be a 1. It's like there's nothing really good.
At the same time, I do feel like, unlike last episode where I feel like she kind of put her own, like messed her own game up a bit by going after Cassidy for what I felt like was no reason. This one was more like, oh, she got tricked, which I tend to be a little more lenient on. Like, I'm going to rate you more harshly if I feel like it was an unforced error. Like you screwed yourself up.
Not like the player on the other side of the net hit a great shot and they just
exactly
couldn't get,
yeah. This is a forced error. This is like you just got outplayed. Which I'm gonna say instead of saying like, well, you were bad, I'm gonna say, well, they were really good. So I don't know how bad you were. Like you could be great, but the other player was legendary, right? So I think I can give her a little bit of leniency there, but it really was loss after loss. But then on the other side of things, as you said, I do still think she's got some decent win equity. So it's tricky for me because, we're only one like the next week is the finale.
There's nowhere to go after that. Like we're going to know the ultimate outcome after today. This is the last time.
Yeah. So
to estimate her.
I think, man, it's hard because I feel my instinct was a 5.
Okay.
I feel like I could go down to a 4 if I'm judging episode performance more, but I think I have to take my foot off the pedal a little bit with episode performance, given that we're one episode before the finale, and say, look, heading into the finale, I think she's like my 3rd most likely winner. So
do you feel like she's likely to even get past the final 5? I feel like she's going to be on the receiving end of either Jesse's idol or.
Yeah, I think she has a couple of outs. One is it's a challenge that doesn't involve ankles. Two,
hopefully it's not the foot challenge or to build the thing with their feet. That would be awful.
2 would be it was a very temporary injury and it's fine by the time she competes in an immunity challenge. I'm kind of not feeling that one because of how quick the schedule is.
Yeah, it's not 3 days.
3 is they all target Jesse, and Jesse decides that because of her injuries, he'd rather compete against her at Final Four immunity.
That's
and
fair.
Takes out somebody
I could see that. That makes sense.
And also another reason why Jesse might want to keep her around is that she is still a final tribal threat. And so if you feel confident that she probably won't win Final Four immunity because she's injured and people won't really want her to be in the Final 3, then like you're kind of giving like that's almost guaranteeing one spot at fire making, right? Like almost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like Owen and Gable would probably put her in at the very least.
Right. And then, hey, worst case, maybe you're making fire against her, or best case, like, it's like, hey, I suck at making fire. You want to make sure Carla doesn't get there, right? Like, who knows, right? I think there's some outs there. But I also think you're right. I think there are a lot of spots where this is her, and she's unable to win immunity, and they take her out. So it's a tricky one, but I think her win equity is this close to the end is enough for me to boost it up, even though this was definitely not a great episode.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Aubrey and Co Wrong, where it started stronger, it continued strong, and then it just all of a sudden had a sharp decline at the very end. And we understand why she doesn't win if she doesn't win. I certainly understand it, but it's also unfortunate.
All right. And finally, of course, Cassidy, who had a very quiet episode here, wins another immunity. And in my estimation, is the second most likely person to win this game because she's still a beast in immunity challenges.
Yeah.
And so I could see her winning out to the finals. As long as she's sitting up against anybody other than Jesse, I think she's got a great chance, especially because Carla just got tricked into flushing her idol. Yes, by Jesse, but also by Cassidy. Cassidy was part of that plan, and you will see, and I'm like at least 85% confident that this was their motivation. Owen and Cassidy during this whole thing are also mugging at the jury, like, hey, we know about this. This is our move too. So as long as Jesse's not there, I think they can take some credit for it, and it really gives Cassidy some selling points over Carla. I said last week that I felt like Cassidy was more likely to beat Carla than Cody was to beat Jesse, and I feel like this episode really, for me, in some ways cemented that, and maybe in other ways just proved it, given that that Jesse didn't think that Cody he'd be able to beat Cody necessarily. But either way, I do think Cassie has a great chance to beat Carla, and that's like, that's assuming she's not sitting there with like Owen and Gabler, which I think would be a slam dunk or close to it, because I think she's well respected. People came for her and she survived, which I think is a great story. She's again such a beast in competitions. I think that she has great kind of like, hey, if Jesse doesn't take this, I'm your gal energy, which is great. And then also, not impossible. We've seen this before, but there might be some hurt feelings. And I think Cassidy is a great person to be on the receiving end of like hey, I played a strategic game, but like you knew who I was. I played straight up. I won competitions. Jesse is a sneaky little liar. like Jesse betrayed people. Maybe Cody after he's thought about it is like, no, you know what? Screw that guy. I don't think it's impossible that she can pick up some votes there. And I think she's really smart, and I think she knows where to play that up. So for me, she's the second most likely winner. But this episode, we barely got anything from her, and the little that we did get was her telling people about Carla's idol, which I thought was a bit of a mistake.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we got was her winning immunity, which was great. So this one's kind of tricky for me. I'm torn kind of between like, I think I have to go with a 6.
Okay. I wrote 6 as well. I have her for a 6.
Her
episode gameplay brought her down for me, but I think
that's exactly what happened.
Her win equity, and I think she's more likely to survive at the moment and get to the final 3 than Carla at this point, and so I'm willing to bump her up a little bit above Carla. So I put her as a 6 as well. The long and short of it. So like if you were struggling to figure out. I would also say, like, I agree with you. I think Cassidy is the most likely person, if not Jesse, to win. I felt that for a while. I've been questioning if Jesse's the actual winner. Is it that out in front? Is it that obvious? It can't be that obvious. It's never that obvious. Look at what we had. Like, Marianne was quite hidden-ish. Mm-hmm. Erica, very hidden. Mm-hmm. I still remember talking to you a year and a half ago or whenever, a year ago, and we were like at the Liana boot, and we were like, who's going to win this season of Survivor 41? Is it Ricard? I think you might have thought Deshawn, but it's like...
I was thinking Deshawn for a while. Yeah.
That's like Erica, maybe, I guess, if you squint and turn your head like 90 degrees, it might work. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, this is a strange... I don't really know. So it's like, I'm feeling a little bit of that with Cassidy on this season, where it's a little more laid out. And I think her gameplay, she's been represented pretty well in the episodes. And this episode herself, she was shown in a fairly positive light, fairly neutral to positive light. I like it. She won immunity. She is clearly able to win immunity. She's got a decent story going. She's got that Cassidy curse going for her, where people come for her, they go home. Jesse hasn't really come for her straight up yet, so maybe he hasn't gone home for that reason. Maybe it's his time is coming soon, and she will bewitch him and send him packing. You know, I'm thinking like the Melisandre of the season or something. All of a sudden, the dark shadow forms and Jesse's fire goes out. I don't know. Maybe she beats him in Final Four, but I don't think we've had a Jesse on most seasons of Survivor where you're looking at like the Erica. Who is the Jesse? It's not Ricard. Ricard was it was an imitation of them. I think he was a I don't know how I want to say it, but there was just Jesse's edit is so full of content going all the way back to the premiere episode. He's had multiple times to sit there and talk about his family in multiple episodes. He's had like at least 2 flashbacks, I'm pretty sure. I'm just looking at it like, Cassidy is an interesting case for an under the radar winner, but I feel like she's more like the Kara from David Goliath. I've seen this before where it feels like she's got it. She's right there on the precipice, but ultimately there's just somebody with a little more substance in the story who's going to take it. And I could be wrong, and I would love it for Cassidy to win. She seems really nice, but at the same time, I give her a 6 here because she's higher than Gabler, higher than Owen, and higher than Carla in this final 5. I think that if she can get Jesse out, I think it's her game to lose. And I think, quite frankly, one of the reasons I was so happy to see her win immunity in this episode, at episode 12, was because I was worried that if she gets taken out, it's Jesse, he's the winner. And I was just like, I don't truly think Carla, Gabler, Owen, or even Cody were going to win this season. I thought it was going to be Jesse or Cassidy. So I'm happy to see Cassidy in the finale. She's giving me a little bit of doubt, but it's not enough for me to overlook, like, this isn't the Ricard. This isn't, I guess, Mike, maybe last season, who would serve as a decoy for Marianne. I feel like this is Jesse's season. So ultimately, I give her a 6. But that's my winner pick, by the way. I think Jesse is going to win going into the finale. I could be wrong, but I will say the last 2 times I've been on the podcast for 42 and 41, it was at the final 6 and the final 7. I said Erica, I said Marianne, and I'm going to say Jesse.
There it is. All
So
right.
we'll see. Who do you think's gonna win? I'm curious. If you had to pick.
You know, I think prior to this episode, I was feeling Cassidy. I really was.
Me too. 100%.
But this episode had so little Cassidy and so much Jesse that it does feel like it feels like they're setting you up to be disappointed if it's not Jesse.
But then they did it with Rick Devens.
They did,
Ish.
but I don't know. I feel like with Rick Devens, and I could be wrong about this, but like certainly the super fan community was kind of like, oh, Rick Devens.
Yeah,
Really?
there was that.
Because and maybe the casual audience didn't feel that way, but I'll be honest, I have no idea what any of the audience thinks about Jesse right now, but I'm assuming they're kind of like enthralled by this at the very least. Because this is not something that this is not just kind of like let's find more idols kind of thing. It's like it's Survivor. It's relationships and strategic moves and emotions.
Yeah. I mean, my mom knows Jesse. My mom recognizes when I ask her. She doesn't remember anyone's name, but she did remember Jesse. So there's that. She's super casual.
And here's the other thing too. I feel like Carla's been taking such a beating the last couple episodes in the edit. I feel like it can't be Carla. And that mostly just leaves like there's the Alligabler option.
Alligabler kind of came up to the surface.
Which I feel like not impossible, but pretty unlikely.
Never happened in 43 seasons, I'll say that much.
Yeah. There's the Owen option, which I also don't think is impossible, but just seems difficult to get to in the game. And I don't know what like the through line is for his story as a winner, but given the last couple of seasons, I don't think it's impossible that we get that kind of thing. And then Cassidy is somebody that makes a decent amount of sense as a winner. And if Jesse wasn't there, I'd feel very good about that. But Jesse is there. And so I think we need to do a lot of work to like take Jesse down off of that pedestal and put somebody like Cassidy up there instead.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Okay.
it's tricky. I think ultimately I do have to, and this is new to this week. So if Jesse doesn't win, like they got me, they tricked me this week and took me off of my Cassidy plan. But I think I have to agree with you. I think this might just be Jesse.
Yeah, I was writing a little bit on Sammy actually for quite a while in the season, and it was only when the final 10 vote happened, I was like, uh-oh. And then the final like 8, I was like, uh-oh. And then wheels came off, obviously. And then I was like, okay, no, I think it is Cassidy. And then this episode, I'm like, oh no, it was Jesse the whole time. And I was wrong. I didn't say Jesse in the True Contenders after episode 3. I tried to predict, and I said Jesse feels like he's too easily the Omer or the Shan or whoever, like the big edit who's going to get a lot of strategic, but he's not going to be emphasized or given what I like to call narrative precedence, where like other players take precedence over him in a lot of the key scenes later down in the end of the game. He's going to go far, but ultimately he's going to be like second fiddle in the narrative somehow. He gets taken out. He's the guy who gets slayed. He's the dragon who gets slayed. And I'm like, oh no, he's not. He's the dragon who like burns everyone down, I guess, is where I'm at. It's going to be slightly different. We don't often get coronations, I feel like, but I do think that I've looked at the past 12 episodes now, and I'm like, they've really put a lot of meat on Jesse's bones here. It would be very interesting to see him lose, which
I feel like the play could be here, and they kind of set it up. And by the way, fantastic editing of the tribal with like the scenes between Cody and Jesse, and then the way that the music stops when Jesse stands up and resumes when Cody shakes his hand. Like, great moment. I feel like, especially with that setup, if this is Jesse's game to win, then the finale is probably like, okay, he needs to potentially win fire or immunity at 4. If he does, then the next step is like, can he beat Carla and or Cassidy? Probably Cassidy at Final Tribal, given that they all look really pissed and they all seem really happy with Cassidy, and that's going to be like the final hurdle before the win. Potentially, that's a path that I could see if that's where we're going.
Give me Mike Holloway. He had the same situation. He'll win if he gets to the finals, assuming the jury isn't too bitter at him. How the hell is he gonna get there? You got to win all the immunities. Are you kidding me? He's just gonna win immunities the whole way? All right, I guess so. And then he does, and even then he had a slightly bitter jury, and he still won them. And I'm like, I think that might be the play. Like, it's like, all right, this guy he's created an opening. He's making a beeline for the Final Tribal Council. He's got the padding at the final 5. Will he be able to actually pull it off? Is like the big question. I feel like we're left with. I certainly feel left with. So
yeah, and I'm perfectly happy with this. Like, I would so much rather see Jesse do what he does to get here and feel like it's most likely what's going to happen, and like it's maybe a coronation, than not see it and be like, oh, so I guess he was really good along the way, and I just didn't know it because we couldn't show it, because then we would be too convinced that it was him. You know what I mean?
I mean, I appreciate that it's not like a little bit of Ghost Island where it was basically one of 2 players, and we knew the whole season it was going to be one of the 2, and it was just a matter of who, flip a coin. Like, I haven't really felt it was going to be Jesse until the penultimate episode. I like that. I would, even though when I look back on it, I'm like, wow, he's actually been kind of the front runner, and I've sort of been shortchanging him.
That's kind of the best case scenario. Like,
it is.
Penultimate episode, you're convinced, and it's like a plot twist where you're like, I should have seen that coming. Like, I feel like that's the right timing for it to happen, for it to land. So I'd be very fine with that.
I'd be fine with him. I'd be fine with Cassidy. I'd be fine with, honestly, like, give him any of them. Any of them could be the winner. I'd be okay with it. I think it'd be an interesting story. I do think this is a pretty strong final 5 cast, final 6 cast. The season overall has been decent. I've always had it somewhere in the mid. It might go higher with this episode and possibly the finale. We'll see. But overall, I think Survivor 43 is pretty good. And if you don't like Modern Survivor, like if you don't like this, you're probably not going to love Modern Survivor in most cases. So for me, this is a good season. It's turning into be an above average season of Survivor. And I think ultimately like a decent season of Modern Survivor. It definitely isn't without its flaws. And I'm going to have to make a video about that soon. But yeah. I just want to say thank you for having me on. This has been.
Thank you for being on. This was
fun.
Yeah, this was great. I feel like we really dove in here.
did.
We went into quite some depth. Only 6 players to rate, but we're like almost 2.5 hours in. So
There's a lot to talk about.
There was a lot to talk about, and a little bit of edit talk as well at the end there. So you got a little bit of everything, just like in the episode. Of course, I'll be back next week for the finale of Survivor 43. We'll see ultimately who wins and how it happens and all of that good stuff. Peridium, where can people find you?
Find me on YouTube. YouTube channel, Peridium, Peridiam. Upload a video every week, and usually about Survivor. And when Big Brother's on in the summer, I'll be talking about Big Brother, but that's not for a ways away. That's it. I guess on Twitter too, but yeah.
Does this sound like a good video idea of like best, like reigns, like Jesse's like 3-episode reign of just like really great moves?
Yeah, you gotta find the good hot SEO word that would captivate the YouTube algorithm. That's what you want to look for. Like, what's a good, like something to do with hot, or like somebody's on fire, or like something about a streak. I'd have to think about that. Yeah, like a streak, like a hot streak.
See, this is why you're the YouTube guy. Like you know these things. You know.
I do. I'll be honest. I spend a decent amount of time like brainstorming. I look at the list of ideas and I'm like, how do I twist this name into making it sound better? And I'll even upload the video and change it at the last second and be like, this sounds better. I've spent way too much time, but it's important. Yeah, I think it's definitely an idea though. It's like, what's the greatest like 3-episode gameplay streak? Something like that.
Yeah, there's definitely a better way to say it, but
Oh, for sure. I was workshopping like alternate timelines of like what if scenarios for a future video, and I was like top 5 greatest things but that you've never seen, and I'm like, I can't end like with that. Like that sounds terrible. I have to make it. Sometimes it's something as simple as like top 5 lamest Survivor challenges. It's just like, hey, it works.
Yeah.
And other times it's a little more complicated, but. Yeah.
All right. Well, you can, of course, find me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, watching these episodes live with all of you. I'll be watching the 3-hour finale live on Twitch if you want to watch it with me as we react to everything that we see. So check that out. And then I'm doing all sorts of other stuff over there on Twitch. So check it out. And you can find me on Twitter @ArmstrongTaran. Thank you all so much for joining us this week on the Survivor Stockwatch. And with only 1 episode left, see you next time.